first and foremost, this is what you have to understand. I want everybody to understand. I'm going to start out saying this. It's just business. Now, I heard this a long time ago, and I really didn't understand what was being said to me, but I've come to a more full understanding of everything that's going on in the world. Everything that's going on in the world is just business. I want you to understand that. It is all business. Now, I've come to this, I've thought about this, and I was watching somebody post something on Facebook. They said, yeah, all the conscious community have been trying to take down the white man for so long, ain't took down the white man yet. And I thought about that. I'm like, well, it's not about taking down anybody. I think the conclusion is that, just white people are just better business. They do business better than we do. I don't think there's not enough, there's no business. Obviously, there's no business going on in our neighborhoods because we are consumers. We're not, for the most part, overwhelmingly, the majority of us are consumers. So it's just not a lot of business going on in our neighborhoods, And I think that's a problem. I think we need to start understanding business on a bigger scale. But I just want to impress upon everybody's minds that it is just business. Once again, let me say that again. It is all business. If you do not understand that it's all business, you'll fall into some patriot type activity or something like that. So I got a call last night talking about the One People's Public Trust and James T. McBride and all these different individuals out there who are they got they may have some good intentions. I don't know the people, so I don't know, but I just look at the information, and when I look at the information, I just have a problem with it. Because I think one of the assumptions that people have is that they are saying that like the gentleman called in the other day, so the United States does not have any rights. They don't have any rights. And that goes contrary. People may feel like that, but that goes contrary to what Supreme Court justices have said. You can go into American jurisprudence and look under the chapter under administrative law where you can get an understanding of the rights and sovereignty of the United States. And a lot of people hear that word sovereignty of the United States and they don't quite understand that either. That, well, we're the sovereigns. Yes, we are sovereign, but the United States is sovereign within their own territory. The United States has insular possessions that they exercise sovereign authority over. It's just that simple, And there is a geographical territory and there is a fictitious territory. There's something else people got to get in their mind. There's a geographical territory and a fictitious territory. There are both these territories going on, okay? So I just want people to understand that. You have a geographical territory that the United States exercises sovereign authority over, and then there is a fictitious territory. The United States has rights, and that's the first thing that I want people to understand. And the right that the United States exercises is the right to conduct business, okay? They are conducting business. Understand this. You are essentially on a monopoly board. Envision this in your mind. Envision this in your mind. Envision the game of Monopoly. You have a monopoly board. You have tokens. You have deeds. You have a community chess and chance. You have go to jail. You have go. You have neighborhoods. You have low class, middle class, upper middle class, and high class neighborhoods. You have utilities. You have transportation. You have all this on the monopoly board. Now, all of these things are purchased with monopoly money because everything on the board is registered to the banks. All right, the bank owns everything. All right, so when you buy it, when you initially buy the property in the game of monopoly, you buy it from the bank. Everybody buys every purchase. Utility companies are bought; they're bought from the bank. The properties, everything is bought from the bank, and they issue you at the beginning of the game monopoly money, about $1,500, so you can play the game. You're giving monopoly money at the beginning of the game. Then you have to select a token to play the game. You have a token to play the game. Some people choose the horse, the dog, the money bag, the race car, the hat, the wheelbarrow, what have you. But you choose your token to play the game, to go around the board to make purchases. Now, let's juxtapose this next to real life and see if we can, make some type of analogy and bring that into reality, from the fiction into the real. In reality, everything around you has been monopolized. When you go to your respective downtown districts, if you look around, every single building downtown is a business. This is a merchant district. There's businesses everywhere. Open your eyes and pay attention. This is why the police are so pervasive, because the police job is to protect businesses, not to protect you. If anybody wants to argue with that, I'll have to pull out some Supreme Court cases. I posted a whole list of them where the Supreme Court has said it is not the police's responsibility to protect you. That's not their job. That is not what they have been commissioned to do. It is obvious. All right? They are here to protect. They are security guards for the municipality, and they have been given the authority to take life in order to protect that property of wealthy merchants, okay? When you choose fairly to come within these merchant districts and engage in commercial activities, utilizing the monopoly money that has been issued from the banks, these securities, these Federal Reserve notes. Now, these constitute what's called minimum contacts. That is a word. Let me read that to you real quick. It's a really good word for everyone who understands minimum contacts. What are minimum contacts? Minimum contacts, definition. And this is how they get what's called personal jurisdiction. They have a thing called the minimum contact test. Oh, and this is I just found this on the internet. This looks pretty good. Let me give this to you. I'm going to put this in the chat room so everybody can read it. And what it says right here, it says personal jurisdiction, minimum contacts test, protects traditional notions of fair play and substantial justice. Activities of non-resident are systematic and continuous for a substantial period of time. Now, let me say that to you again. I want you to put this in your mind, okay? Put this in your mind. Actions speak louder than words. Actions speak louder than words. Let me read this to you again. Activities of non-resident are systematic and continuous for a substantial period of time. Most of these activities that you're engaged in that you don't know, the primary activity that you're engaged in is the use of Federal Reserve notes. They are always after Federal Reserve notes. Let me read this other. Let me read this. Read this to you too. I want you to remember this verse. Remember in the Bible when in Matthew chapter 22, when Jesus was talking to the Pharisees and Sadducees, Matthew chapter, 20? Chapter 22, and I think it's, let me try 18. I'm going to read this verse to you real quick. And it's a discussion where Jesus gets into a discussion with some Pharisees and Sadducees about paying taxes. Everything is about business, and everything is also about taxes. I want you to put that in your mind, and I'm going to read you the LIBOR code in a minute. Let me read this to you. It says, "Then went the Pharisees and took counsel how they might entangle him in his talk. And they sent out unto him their disciples with Herodians, saying, Master, we know that thou art true and teachest the way of God in truth. Neither carest thou for any man, for thou regardest not the person of men. Tell us, therefore, what thinkest thou? Is it lawful to give tribute unto Caesar or not?" Now, remember on my show I said how you can always tell an undercover IR agent that works for the government because they're always trying to get you to say that you don't have to pay taxes. In my field of business and helping people with foreclosures or something like that, you open up an office, you know, it's going to be, at some point, there's going to be some client that's going to walk through the door and you're going to be having a conversation with him, and out of the blue, he's going to ask you, well, do I have to pay taxes? What do you think about paying taxes? They're always trying to get you on that because everything is about taxes. And let me say this, yes, you have to pay taxes if your conduct dictates that you must pay taxes. And I'm going to clarify that later. But I think it brings it home right here in the Bible. The Bible has principles in it that are I mean, if you read this stuff, you'll see what's going on. I mean, they're giving you the messages right here. But let me read it again. It says, "Then went the Pharisees and took counsel how they might entangle him in his talk." Notice that they want to get you with your words. Anything you say can and will be used against you. That's Matthew chapter 22, verse 15. They want to entangle you in your words, actions, words. And they sent out unto him their disciples with the Herodians, saying, Master, we know that thou art true and teachest the way of God in truth. Neither carest thou for any man, for thou regardest not the person of men. Notice that they said the person of men. They're trying to set them up. Tell us, therefore, what thinkest thou? Is it lawful to give tribute unto Caesar or not? But Jesus perceived their wickedness and said, Why tempt ye me, you hypocrites? Show me the tribute money. And they brought unto him a penny. And he saith unto them, Who is the image and subscription? They say unto him, Caesar's. Then saith he unto them, Render therefore unto Caesar the things which are Caesar's, and unto God the things which are God. And when they heard these words, they marveled and left him and went their way. This is why I can come on this show and tell you everything is public or private. If you get into the law books, you will see everything breaks down into those two classes of activities. And you have to know what belongs to Caesar and what belongs to God. If you are utilizing anything of Caesar's, Caesar is going to tax you for it, and you are going to have to pay him. I want that distinction clear in everybody's mind before we begin, because we're talking about business. And it's not going to help if somebody keeps coming on here and talking about, well, we Moors, and that don't apply to us, and this is it's our land, and and I understand what you're saying, but I don't think you understand the jurisdiction. I don't think you got a clear understanding of jurisdiction when you say that, and I don't think that you have a good understanding of rights and duties. That the United States does have rights. Go get a law book. I'm directing you where to read. Go read it. Go get American jurisprudence and read anything on administrative law. And just go start studying administrative law. And so you get a thorough understanding that the United States has rights. Okay? They have rights. We have to establish that. For you to say that the United States doesn't have any rights is almost like, basically it's almost like a declaration of war, For you can be construed as a terrorist, and I'm trying to prevent people from getting locked up as terrorists, because it's always going to happen. You're going to get locked up, and you're just going to be talking shit behind a cage, and nobody's going to come get you out or anything like that. Let's just keep it 100, okay? So let's just keep our mind in a business state of mind. Now we're not in a war mode or anything like that. All I'm trying to do is get people to understand that this is just business and how you are being viewed as engaged in business. Now, render unto Caesar what is Caesar, and unto the Lord what is the Lord's. When you look at Federal Reserve notes, they belong to the Federal Reserve. That is Caesar. Every time you utilize Federal Reserve notes, let me go back and read what it said about minimum contacts. It says activities of non-resident, and you are non-resident because you do not live within Washington, D.C., which is 10 miles square. You're foreign to the United States. Activities of non-resident are systematic and continuous for a substantial period of time, and you've been doing this for a substantial period of time as well. Whether or not it's ignorance or not is a moot point. And it enjoys the benefits and protections of the foreign state. Now, a lot of you, when you enjoy benefits and protections, those benefits and protections come in the form of licenses. You have a marriage license. You have a driver's license. These are all benefits, and you are getting the protections of the foreign state. State with a small s, can resort to the foreign state's courts for enforcement of its rights. You see that. They have rights. Get this in your mind, that they have rights, okay? I know that you probably feel that they don't, but they do, okay? They have rights. You just saying it, and you don't have any guns. Rights come out of the barrel of a gun. Minimum contacts connected to action that gives rise to harm ensures fair and orderly administration of laws. Once minimum contacts are established, court looks to the burdens and interests of adjudication to maintain fairness. Minimum contacts must come about by an action of the purposefully directed towards the foreign state. Okay, now this is what I'm talking about, public and private. If your conduct or your actions are directed toward the state, privacy means that you are not engaged in the state in any kind of way. Let me say this again. Minimum contacts must come about by an action of the purposefully directed towards the foreign state. Placement of product in a stream of commerce is not enough. Awareness that product might be swept into the foreign state is not enough. Injecting goods into a stream of commerce suffices to support jurisdiction under the minimum contact test. Injecting goods into a stream of commerce. To establish minimum contacts, the foreseeability that is critical to due process analysis is that conduct and connection with the foreign state are such that he should reasonably anticipate being hauled into court there, or purposefully avails himself of the privilege of conducting activity in the foreign state. And this is what you incorporate your business. And I just seen James T. McBride. He got arrested buying gold, and he got a business. He got a license. They arrested him for doing business without a license. Study this minimum contacts, okay? Minimum contacts. I mean, this paper that I just pulled out is very, very good. Remedies. Declarations of appropriate court has force and effect of a final judgment or decree, and its purpose for punitive damages to deter, punish for wrongdoing. Judges obligated to review punitive damages to ensure due process. This thing is real interesting right here on this. I just found this on minimum contacts. Y'all should pick that up and start studying any and everything on minimum contacts. Now that I've got that out the way, let me move on to this before I go into in depth what I want to talk about. Let me read you this Lieber code really quick, okay? And let me put this in the chat room because I want people to understand this. Because I'm trying to build a foundation so you can understand why you are doing a secure party creditor process, okay? All right. Military law, military jurisdiction, military necessity, retaliation. Article 1. And I'm reading the Lieber Code, okay, under Section 1. It's instructions for the government of armies of the United States in the field. It says, a place, district, or country occupied by an enemy stands and consequence of the occupation under the martial law of the invading or occupying army, whether any proclamation declaring martial law or any public warning to the inhabitants has been issued or not. Martial law is the immediate and direct effect and consequence of occupation or conquest. The presence of a hostile army proclaims its martial law. Now, when you go into these courtrooms, you will see that the flags in there are military flags, and we have districts that the several states have been chopped up into districts. This is a consequence of the Civil War. Let me keep going. It says martial law does not cease during the hostile occupation except by special proclamation ordered by the commander-in-chief or by special mention in the treaty of peace concluding the war when the occupation of a place or territory continues beyond the conclusion of peace as one of the conditions of the same. Now, we have not had any proclamation or order by the commander-in-chief that would demonstrate that martial law has been terminated since because Lincoln got killed after this, and no president afterwards has issued any proclamation stating that we're no longer under martial law. Let's go to number 3. It says martial law in a hostile country consists in the supervision by the occupying military authority of the criminal and civil law and of the domestic administration and government in the occupied place or territory, and in the substitution of military rule and force for the same, as well as in the dictation of general laws as far as military necessity requires this suspension, substitution, or dictation. The commander of the forces may proclaim that the administration of all civil and penal law shall continue either wholly or in part, as in times of peace, unless otherwise ordered by the military authority. And this is basically letting you know under martial law, they can allow you to continue everything as it was the same, or they can change it if they want. Now, Article 4, it says military law is simply military authority exercised in accordance with the laws and usages of war. Military oppression is not martial law. It is the abuse of power which that law confers. As martial law is executed by military force, it is incumbent upon those who administer it to be strictly guided by the principles of justice, honor, and humanity, virtues adorning a soldier even more than other men for the very same reason that he possesses the power of his arms against the unarmed. Martial law should be less stringent in places and countries fully occupied and fairly conquered. So it's less stringent, all right? So they fully occupied and conquered the United States, so that's why it's less stringent. Much greater severity may be exercised in places or regions where actual hostilities exist or are expected and must be prepared for, and most complete sway is allowed even in the commander's own country. When face-to-face with the enemy, because of the absolute necessities of the case and of the paramount duty to defend the country against invasion. To save the country is paramount to all other considerations. Article 6. All civil and penal laws shall continue to take its usual course in the enemy's places and territories under martial law, unless interrupted or stopped by order of the occupying military power. But all the functions of the hostile government, legislative, executive, or administrative, whether of a general, provincial, or local character, cease under martial law or continue only with the sanction or, if deemed necessary, the participation of the occupier or invader. Martial law extends to property and to persons, whether they are subject of the enemy or aliens to that government. Consuls among American and European nations are not diplomatic agents. Nevertheless, their offices and persons will be subjected to martial law in cases of urgent necessity only. Their property and business are not exempted. Any delinquency they commit against the established military rule may be punished, as in the case of any other inhabitant, and such punishment furnishes no reasonable ground for international complaint. The functions of ambassadors, ministers, and other diplomatic agents accredited by neutral powers to the hostile government cease so far as regards the displaced government, but the conquering or occupying power usually recognizes them as temporarily accredited to itself. And, you know, James T. McBride, he's in there, he's trying to do this diplomatic thing, and right here he's telling us all that cease. Just read this stuff. I mean, Article 10, martial law affects chiefly the police and collect. Now listen to this. Martial law affects chiefly the police and collection of public revenue and taxes, whether imposed by the expelled government or by the invader, and refers mainly to the support and efficiency of the army, its safety, and the safety of operations. When you go into these courts, these are military courts. They are collecting taxes. I told you at the beginning, it's all a tax. Article 11, the law of war does not only disclaim all cruelty and bad faith concerning engagements concluded with the enemy during the war, but also the breaking of stipulations solemnly contracted by the belligerents in time of peace and avowedly intended to remain in force in case of war between the contracting powers. Let me go on. I think that's the only thing I want to read about that taxes right there. Oh, right here. It says, whenever feasible, martial law is carried out in cases of individual offenders by military courts by sentence of death shall be executed only with the approval of chief executive, provided the urgency of the case does not require speedier execution, and then only with the approval of the chief commander. Military jurisdiction is of two kinds. First, that which is conferred and defined by statute, and second, that which is derived from the common law of war. Military offenses under the statute law must be tried in the manner therein directed, but military offenses which do not come within the statute must be tried and punished under the common law of war. The character of the courts which exercise these jurisdictions depends upon the local laws of each particular country. In the armies of the United States, the first is exercised by court-martials, while cases which do not come within the rules of the Articles of War or the jurisdictions conferred by a statute on courts-martial are tried by military commissions. Now, that is a key term. I want you to understand these military commissions. I'm not going to read this entire thing, but I want people to read the Libra Code, and I want you to start placing in your mind and asking yourself this question. Is this what's going on today? Are we still under some sort of military occupation? And while you're reading this, I want you to, just kind of get in your mind and start to ask yourself that question while you're reading the Libra Code. Because we are under, I've said it before, Even before I read this, I'd come to this conclusion. I said, well, they're a military occupation. It's a military occupation, which would explain a lot of the activities of the police and the things that they are doing. Now, obviously, the occupation it's not an extreme form of martial law, like it said earlier, and they're allowing us to go on and conduct business. They've taken all of our gold. They've taken all of it, but they issued us monopoly money so we can continue to engage in business, our day-to-day activities, and do whatever we need to do. But all our wealth was confiscated from us. I mean, this is very interesting. So I wanted to put that out there, and I want to just lay down a foundation for everyone that, that first of all, who's in control, how they got in control, and also next, just to let everybody know that we're under a military occupation and that this is all just business. Now, remember what I said earlier about render unto Caesar what is Caesar's and unto the Lord's what is the Lord's. That is public and private. Caesar is public, the Lord is private. All right, statutory law is the realm of the United States and all its insular possessions. Privacy is the realm of God and your God-given rights to contract and conduct your business any way that you want to. But you have to do that. You cannot establish any minimum contacts. You have to study minimum contacts in order to understand how to maintain privacy. And you also have to understand tax law, because if you fall under minimum contacts, you're going to be taxed. And taxes come in a variety of forms. Going to prison is a tax. It is a tax. A lot of people with their hands up, and I'm gonna take these questions in a minute, but I'm gonna run through this list real quick. I'm going to be doing a webinar on the secured party creditor, but I'm going to run through the list and over the air so everybody can get a good working understanding of all this stuff. And when you look at the list, it's on the stream. You will see it's a Section 1. You got a UCC 11 search, a copyright clearance from Westlaw, a commercial security agreement, a UCC 1 and a UCC 1 addendum. And then in Section 2, which is for your first Treasury packet that's going to go out to the Treasury Department first, you're going to send them a copy of your UCC 1, your first filing, which stays with you forever. You're going to send them a Form W-8, an affidavit of tax-exempt foreign status, a revocation and termination of franchise, and a hold harmless agreement. And then in Section 3 is where you're going to get your 98 series number for your foreign trust, because you have to operate out of a trust. All right? The only thing that you can maintain privacy in is in a trust. That's it. That's it. It's in a trust. All right? Trust law. You got an SS form for your estate. You got an SS4 form for your corporation. You can incorporate your name for doing businesses, for credit purposes. And 8832, which is assigning your Social Security to your trust, and the 8832 to assign your estate, and the 8832 to assign your corporation, because you're going to put all that in trust. It's going to operate out of trust. Now, I'm going to talk about right now this affidavit of tax-exempt status, foreign status, because somebody asked me about it, but I think it is very, very key. And I'm going to read this to you. And you can Google one on the Internet if you want to look up one. It's a boilerplate document, but it's a very good boilerplate document. And I'm going to read this to you, and then I'm going to take some questions. And the reason that I'm going to go through this document with you, because it's one of the most important documents, because it's establishing or it's informing these people, the number one, that you are foreign to them. You don't ever want to be an enemy of the United States. All right? we don't have the power to be the enemy of the state, number one. All right? We don't have a military. We don't have anything. We don't have anything. I know people have these delusions of grandeur. They want to take over the government and all that. We're not even organized or anything to even do something on a scale like that. So let's just be reasonable for a second, okay? How are we going to do business and enrich ourselves and maintain peace and order? Let's make this our first priority. So what is an affidavit of tax-exempt foreign status? All right, what this is establishing is, first of all, on the record is that you are not going to be engaged in any business within the United States. All right, let me read this to you. For the purposes of this affidavit, the terms United States and U.S. mean only the federal legislative democracy of the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, U.S. Virgin Islands, Guam, American Samoa, and any other territory within the United States, which entity has its origin and jurisdiction from Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 through 18, and Article 4, Section 3, Clause 2 of the Constitution for the United States of America. The terms United States and U.S. are not to be construed to mean or include the sovereign United 50 States of America. All right, so we're talking about, I like how this is worded, we're talking about the legislative democracy. This is what people got to understand, that the United States is a corporation and their jurisdiction is set out in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, which is 10 miles square in Washington, D.C. Now, they've extended that territory through a fictional territory, through getting people to become U.S. citizens. That is called a franchise, all right? That's called a franchise. Just like when you franchise McDonald's or Burger King or something like that, they franchised outside of the United States. They offered the slaves first and foremost a franchise by creating this thing called a person, which is a corporation. But they gave this same entity to everyone in the United States and gave you all civil rights. Now, it goes on, it says, know all men by these presents that I, and you're going to put your name, and proper persona, proceeding sui juris, man upon the land, a follower of Almighty Supreme Creator, first and foremost, and the laws of man, when they are not in conflict, see Leviticus 18:3 and 4, pursuant to Matthew 5:33 through 37, and James 5:12, let my yea be yea, and my nay be nay. Now, this is very interesting because a lot of people go in court, and they swear to tell the truth, and they put their hand on the Bible, where right inside of that Bible, Jesus tells you not to swear. But let your yes mean yes and your no mean no. Anything beyond that is from the evil one. It's more of this demology that they do to us. As supported by Federal Public Law 97-280, 96 Stat 1211, being duly sworn, deposed, and says, and I would take sworn out of that. Put affirm, declare, declare and affirm. Use declare and affirm. Neither born nor naturalized in the United States, nor subject to its jurisdiction, I am not and never have been, as described in 26 CFR 1.1-1C and the 14th Amendment, a U.S. citizen, and a citizen with a small c, which is a common noun. Therefore, I am an alien with respect to the United States. You are alien to the United States. You are not within their jurisdiction. And once you understand that, you understand how you're alien. You're foreign to them. I am not and have never been, as described in 26 U.S.C. 865G1A, a resident of the U.S., okay? Because they got this thing called a resident, and this is a fictitious thing. This is dealing with fictions. I have never made, with any knowingly intelligent acts, Brady versus U.S. 397 U.S. 742 and 748, any voluntary election under 26 U.S.C. 6013 or 26 CFR 1.871-4 to be treated as a U.S. resident alien for any purpose. Further, I have utterly no intention of making such election in the future. Now, if you notice, all of these codes that I'm reading are coming out of Title 26, which is the IRS code. Because when the military occupied the entire country, they started taxing everyone. They took all of our possessions, which is called a contribution or war contribution. Look up the word, war contribution. Matter of fact, let's look that word up. Let's look up that word real quick. I think that's pertinent right now for us to understand that. Let me pull out the Black's Law Dictionary. And let's look up this word, war contribution. Very interesting word. For us to be familiar with. Because when you see, and the reason that I want you to understand war contribution, because they don't use that word. They don't use the word war contribution. They would use the word contribution, and I want to show you why. Because, and this is going to tie it back into the LIBOR code, because many people don't make these connections because they don't dig deep enough. They don't dig deep enough. They look on the surface. They don't go deep. They read something on the surface, and then they don't look deeper into the definitions of words, and they don't look deeper. And then they go out and they mislead people. So let's look at this word war contribution real quick. I got a Black's Law 9th edition. I'm using a fairly recent edition. And I'm going into the W's. I think it's in the W's. Hold on, let me see. That word waif is something else you want to put on your vocabulary list too. Waif, W-A-I-F. W-A-I-F. Understand what a waif is. Look that up in the Black's Law Dictionary. Definitely something you need to, when you read the clerk's practice, okay. Now, war contribution is international law, and here it is. It says, an extraordinary payment imposed by an occupying power on the population of an occupied territory during wartime, often shortened to contribution. I want you to study that word. They often shorten to contribution. So when you read these tax codes, when they say it's a contribution, understand that it's a war contribution because they are military occupying us. We are still under martial law. There has been no declaration of peace or anything in effect. If you want to understand how the United States is operating right now, you should read that LIBOR code. Let me go on. I am not described in 26 U.S.C. 865 G1B, a non-resident alien of the United States. Number 5, I am not and never have been as described in 26 U.S.C. 7701A30, a U.S. person. Number 6, I am not and never have been as described in 26 U.S.C. 7701A14, a taxpayer. Number 7, I do not have and never have had, as described in 26 U.S.C. 911D3, a tax home within the U.S. Now, I had some people tell me, well, I had trouble getting me a 98 number when I called the IRS campus in Philadelphia in attempting to get a 98 number for my trust. They didn't give me a 98 number. They gave me a 33 number or something like that. And I can almost assuredly tell you that you don't understand what I'm reading right now. You probably gave them your social security number or something like that. They tricked you. And immediately upon doing that, you compromised the foreign or private status of that particular trust. Their duty, when you call that number, is to, in some shape, form, or fashion, trick you into telling what they believe to be the truth, that you are not operating as a foreign entity, and you don't know what you're doing. You don't understand tax law. That's number 8. It says, I am therefore as described in 26 CFR Code of Federal Regulations 1.871-2 and 26 U.S.C. 7701B, a non-resident alien with respect to the United States, and am outside the general venue and jurisdiction of the U.S. Notice that they use the word outside the general venue and jurisdiction of the U.S. Now this gets back into your minimum contact. How you demonstrate that you are outside the general jurisdiction and venue of the United States is that you can demonstrate that you are not engaged in no matter in any shape, form, or fashion, any type of commercial activity. And this is going to require you to quit your job. And I'm going to talk about that a little later, about these jobs that you have, because that's a big thing. I mean, their power comes from the fact that you keep feeding the system. You're feeding the system. By working for the system, not growing your own food, won't do things for yourself. But let's keep going. It says, I am not and never have been, as described in 26 U.S.C. 3401, an officer or an employee or an elected official of the United States or of a state or of any political subdivision thereof, nor of the District of Columbia, nor of a domestic corporation earning wages from an employer. Because you got to understand, all these corporations are franchises of the District of Columbia. So if you are an employer of one of these corporations, you're earning wages. Number 10, I am not and never have been, as described in 31 U.S.C. 3713, a fiduciary, or as described in 26 U.S.C. 6901, a transferee or a transferee of a transferee. And I hope you know what a transferee is, somebody who is receiving something. All right? You will see that a lot of times in trust law, they'll talk about something that's directly affected with, connected with activity within the United States. Let me see if I can find something with that in here. I got a trust book, and I'm going to read some stuff out of here too. Because if your trust is not managed properly, they will construe it as an association, and then they're going to tax it. This is why it's very important to understand how to manage your trust. Let me read this to you. It says business trust. There are other arrangements which are known as trust because the legal title to property is conveyed to trustees for the benefit of beneficiaries, but which are not classified as trust for the purpose of the Internal Revenue Code because they are not simple arrangements to protect or conserve the property of the beneficiaries. The fact that any organization is technically cast in the trust form by conveying title to property to trustees for the benefit of persons designated as beneficiaries will not change the real character of the organization if, applying the principles set forth in subsection 301.7701-2 and 301.7701-3, the organization more resembles an association or partnership than a trust. And this goes down to your actions, like I'm saying. And I'm going to get into some deep trust discussion, but it breaks back down to actions speak louder than words. A lot of you out there think that if you file paperwork, that's the end of it. The paperwork is like 20%. Your actions constitute 80%. I am not and never have been, as described in 26 U.S.C. Subtitle B, a donor or contributor, and as a non-resident alien excluded under 26 U.S.C. 2501A2, I am exempt from any gift tax under 26 U.S.C. Subtitle B. Now, when you say he's a contributor, now this is very interesting because this is going to require a great deal of paperwork to substantiate that to the government that you are not a contributor and that you are at peace. There's two things that you need to establish for the U.S. government: that, first of all, that you are foreign, and secondly, that you are not a threat to any interest of the United States. I don't understand why people don't say that. I'm going to say it. I listen to a lot of people out there. I think they are agents. It's just my humble opinion. I think there are a lot of agents out there giving misinformation out, trying to get individuals into a lot of trouble, basically. You're going out there, saying that United States can't do this, United States can't do that, and I'm not this and I'm not that. You don't want to be an enemy of the state, okay? You don't want to be an enemy of the state. As a non-resident alien not engaged in or affect, now here is the key. This is what I was looking for. Pay attention. I'm going to read this slowly. as a non-resident alien not engaged in or effectively connected with any trade or business within the United States. You cannot be engaged in or effectively connected with any trade or business within the United States, meaning you can't have a corporation, driver's license, social security card, all these different things, okay? Now, he's going to go on and say, he says, I am not required by law to obtain a U.S. taxpayer identification number or a social security number because of my exemption under 26 CFR 301.61091G. There's your exemption. Further, I'm not required by law to make, as described in 26 CFR 1.6015A-1, a declaration because I'm exempt under 26 CFR 1.6015I-1 and fundamental law. As a non-resident alien, I have no self-employment income as described in 26 CFR 1.14029B-3D. As a non-resident alien, I derive no gross income from sources within the United States, either effectively connected or not effectively connected with the conduct of or trade or business in the United States as described in 26 U.S.C. 872A. For this to be true, you're going to have to set up a trust. You have to stop utilizing that Social Security number. Because if you put out an affidavit like this and you're still utilizing your Social Security number, you're committing perjury. 15, as a non-resident alien, my private sector remuneration, which is how you make your money, is from sources without the United States as described in 26 CFR 1.1441-3A, does not constitute 26 U.S.C. 3401 wages and is therefore not subject to mandatory withholding under 26 U.S.C. 3402A, 3101A, or 26 CFR 1.1441-1 because of its exemption under 26 U.S.C. 3401A6 and fundamental law. Now, the key to number 15 is your private sector remuneration. I mean, your money is gotten privately and is not subject to taxation, which can only be accomplished through a trust. Especially when you're dealing with these Federal Reserve notes. As a non-resident alien, I did never intentionally make, with any knowingly intelligent acts, any voluntary withholding agreement as described in 26 U.S.C. 3402P. As a non-resident alien, my income is not included in gross income under Subtitle A and is exempt from withholding according to 26 CFR 1.441-3A and 26 CFR 31.3401A6-1B. And don't ask me to repeat this. It is recorded. You need to go back and listen to this recording again. You can also Google. I'm going to be sending this out into an email, but you can also Google this information, okay? As a non-resident alien with no income from sources within the United States, my private sector non-U.S. income is free from all federal tax under fundamental law. Now, this is important for you to understand. Everything is a tax. You're being taxed. You're being taxed when you go to jail, when you go to prison, when you get a speeding ticket. Everything is a tax. It is a war contribution. Now, since it is a war contribution, common sense would dictate that you do not want to be deemed as an enemy of the state, obviously. Let's just put that out there, okay? You do not want to be deemed an enemy of the state. I'm not here to promote war because I don't really think it's going to get anybody anywhere. I mean, let's keep going. And then I'm going to take some questions after this. As a non-resident alien, my estate and or trust, let me read that again. as a non-resident alien, my estate and or trust is, as described in 26 U.S.C. 7701A31, a tax-exempt foreign estate or trust. Now, before you contact Philadelphia and attempt to get a 98 number, you need to read this and understand this. If you don't understand what I'm reading on this page right here, you really shouldn't be trying to attempt to get a 98 number, because it's not going to do you any good. Because all that number is indicating, it's just an identifier for the IRS to let them know that you are foreign and you are not effectively doing any business that's connected with the United States. And this is why I make sure your bank account's not subject to any type of seizure from the IRS or anything like that as well. However, if you don't know how to manage that particular trust, then they will be able to pierce it very easily. And this requires you, as a trustee, to understand what I'm talking about right now. If you don't understand what I'm talking about right now, you just formed a trust, and it's no good. And I know you Moors out there, you're putting together trust, and you think because you did a declaration of trust, and you have an indenture, and you have all the necessary paperwork, that you got something. You may have even gotten a bank account. That doesn't mean anything if it's not managed properly. It is actions speak louder than words. If that trust is connected, is effectively connected, let me read this to you again. Everybody out there, okay? If it is effectively connected with a trade or business within the United States, if you're engaged in or effectively connected with any trade or business within the United States, and they can demonstrate that, your trust is going to lose its trust status, and it's going to be construed as an association or some type of partnership or something like that. 20, as a natural-born citizen with a capital C, C1115 of the Constitution, American citizen and non-resident alien with respect to the federal United States, I did never voluntarily, intentionally waive with any knowingly intelligent acts any of my unalienable rights and have utterly no intention of doing so in the future. Any prima facie evidence or presumption to the contrary is hereby rebutted. Any past signatures on Department of the United States Treasury, Internal Revenue Service, IRS, and Social Security Administration SSA forms, statements, etc., were in error and voluntarily made under threat, duress, and coercion. I hereby revoke, cancel, and render void, not pro tonque, both currently and retroactively to the time of signing any and all such signatures. I reserve my common law right not to be compelled to perform under any agreement that I have not entered into knowingly, voluntarily, and intentionally. I do not accept the liability of the compelled benefit of any unrevealed adhesion, contract, commercial security agreements, or bankruptcy. Now, let me say this. For you to reserve a common law right, you got to understand natural law. Another mandatory element necessary to make all of this work for you is you have to understand natural law. You have to start delving into the esoteric information. If you're not a student of esoteric information, this is really not for you. It's really not. And I'll talk about that a little bit too. Number 21, I'm not a 26 U.S.C. 7203 person required. I'm not a non-taxpayer outside both general and tangential venue and jurisdiction under Title 26 United States Code. I'm not an expert in the law. However, I do know right from wrong. If there is any human being damaged by any statements herein, if he will inform me by facts, I will sincerely make every effort to amend my ways. I hereby and herein reserve the right to amend and make amendment to this document as necessary in order that the truth may be ascertained and proceedings justly determined. Parties given notice by means of this document have information that would controvert and overcome this affidavit. Please advise me in written affidavit form within 15 days from receipt hereof, proving me with your counter affidavit, proving the particularity by stating all requisite actual law. This affidavit statement is substantially and materially false, sufficiently to change materially my status and factual declarations. Your silence stands as consent to and tacit approval of the factual declarations herein being established as fact as a matter of law, reserving all natural, God-given, unalienable birthrights, waiving none, even under 28 U.S.C. subsection 1746, rights and without prejudice to any of those rights under UCC 1-308-207. And some areas, they still have UCC 1207 too, y'all. like over there in New York and some places like that. Y'all need to be aware of that. It didn't change to the 1308 in every state. I declare, and don't use UCC 1207, use your state. Like if you're in Georgia, use OCGA 11-1-308. Find out where the Uniform Commercial Code has been codified in your particular state, especially when you are sending correspondence to state officials. I declare under penalty of perjury under the laws of the United States of America that the foregoing is true and correct pursuant to 28 U.S.C. subsection 1746 and executed without the United States, which means private. Now, I'm going to take some calls because I'm sure I got some questions. But I want you to but wait a minute, before I do, though, let me one last thing, the UCC stuff, because we're talking about the secure party creditor. The secure party creditor process is you establishing a private bank account. That's all it is. And if they're not telling you this, that's because they don't understand what they're doing. You are doing private banking. And as a private banker, one of the requisite requirements for you to do that is you have to know how to. It is expected for you to know how to put together a negotiable instrument. This is why I do negotiable instrument classes. If you do not know how to construct a promissory note, if you do not know how to construct an international bill of exchange, if you don't understand how to do an assignment for a UCC-3 off of the deposit that you have made in the Treasury Department in the form of a bond and assign that to a creditor, you don't understand private banking. It is banking. It is business. Now, also I want to discourage anybody to thinking that there is something free. There is no such thing as something for nothing. Everything is quid pro quo. One of the things that I began to understand in all of this is that we have to have some type of value, put some type of value into the system. Some type of value into the system, okay? Let me go through the list real quick before I take these classes and take these questions. Under Section 1, and if you're on the stream, you can call in and ask your questions. But under Section 1, you're going to do a UCC 11 search first. You always have to do a search first because you are trying to make a priority claim against your estate. In order for you to do that effectively, you have to make sure there are no other claims. This is no different than doing a title search when you buy a house. You're not going to buy a house if there's already liens against the house. You're not going to get a loan for the house. Well, it's the same thing. A lot of you go to jail first, and then you try to do your secure party creditor process. What you don't understand is that the state already has a lien lodged against you. So now you don't have the priority interest. You don't have the priority claim. So you have to establish, first of all, that you have a priority claim by first determining, first of all, is there already claims present against your estate? And you do that by getting a certified copy of a UCC 11 search. In some of these states, you can do it on a form. Some of them, you do it on the internet. Then next, you're going to do a copyright clearance with Westlaw Publishing. You're going to do a copyright clearance because the statutes codes that you are out there attempting to use are private property. They're copyrighted material. You don't have a right to use it. Get a clearance from Westlaw. All you have to do is write them. Gene Keating told me that there's a lady over there, the head lady that you want to talk to, who's like the director over there or something, that you would contact her. I forgot the name that he gave me of the individual. But you definitely want to do a copyright clearance. You want to get clearance to use copyrighted material. They will give it to you. They will send you a clearance for that. Thirdly, you want to put together a security agreement. Your security agreement is your contract. You have to have a contract. In that particular security agreement, and because it's doubtful, I think a lot of people ever read those security agreements, you basically outline that you will be acting as surety for your particular straw man and that you will agree to discharge any public charges your straw man may incur, which necessitates that you not argue. You cannot challenge jurisdiction. You cannot do a conditional acceptance. You cannot do any of those things. You have to do an all-out acceptance. Let me make that perfectly clear. You don't do conditional acceptances.
You don't argue jurisdiction. Read the 14th Amendment, where it says the public debt shall not be questioned. Your straw man is a 14th Amendment citizen, not you. Public and private do not mix. They don't ever mix them. Don't you ever mix them. Let me continue. Next on this list, we have a UCC-1, which you're going to file in your state, and you're going to file it where you live. Now, you can file it in Kentucky, and you can file it in Maryland, and go over to Washington State and do all that, and use the International Security Agreement and the National UCC-1 form and all that. But under the UCC, under Article 9, you have to file a security agreement where the property originated and where the property resides. Your birth certificate originated in your birth state, and wherever you live at, you have to put and that necessitates that you put on notice when you move to a new area. You are bonding yourself against a public charge. This is what you're doing. You're bonding yourself against a public charge. Everything that operates in the public has to be bonded. What makes you think you don't? The public officials have to be bonded. What makes you think you don't have to be bonded? If you're going to operate in the public. If you're going to stay in the private, there's no need for you to be bonded. But if you're coming into the public, you got to be bonded. Under Section 2, you're going to send a packet to the government, to the Treasury Department, and on there you're going to notice you got a tax form, which is a W-8BEN, which is a certificate, and if you pull it up, what does it say? Oh my God! Lo and behold, it says Certificate of Foreign Status of Beneficial Owner for United States Tax Withholding. You give this form to the withholding agent or payer in your foreign person, and you are the beneficial owner of an amount subject to withholding. Now, this is for some income is subject to withholding before you get it. And you're going to give this to, like, I'll give you an example. Like if you had an employer that was taking money out of your check, you would give them something like this. This is not a very good example of what I'm giving you, but I'm, just for illustrative purposes is why I'm saying this. When you study tax law, you'll get a little better understanding of withholding, who a withholding agent is and how they take money that is subject to taxation before you even receive the money. It can be up to 30%. But once again, you're going to have to, this is a certificate that demonstrates that you have a foreign status and that you are not engaged in commerce within the United States. I go over all of this in my webinars. I'm not going to go over the trust information. I'll get the webinar for that. However, I'm going to take some calls now. We got a revocation of termination of franchise. I go over all these documents in my webinar, but let me just put this in very simple terms for you. All that it is about is demonstrating that you are foreign, that you are private, that you are not effectively connected to any trade or business within the United States and not subject to taxation. Everything is about taxes, and I'm sure I'm going to let y'all ask me some questions now so we can delve in deeper. I'm sure y'all got some questions because I'm coming off the top of my head with a lot of this information. So let me go to the phone lines real quick and open up the phone lines and take some questions. Now I'm going to start off at the top. We're going to go to Area code 302, which is Delaware. And we'll start there. All right, 7930, you're on High Frequency Radio. Lines open.
Islam, good brother. This is Brother Taj. How you feeling, brother?
Islam.
How you feeling, brother? Right, good brother.
Great.
Great show, great information. Is there based in the international law, whereas the United States corporation, after being dissolved, can maintain occupation without revealing for the public record that they're doing so, and that they must reveal to the occupied people, disclose the methods of them not being artificially misclassified?
I mean, when you read the Libra Code, it says right there, when I read that, let me go back and read that to you again, where it talks about the Articles of War. It says...
Oh, yeah, I'm aware of it, you know, but I just wanted to reinforce that.
It says right there, they're not required to tell you nothing.
Yeah.
It says the place, district, or country occupied by the enemy stands in consequence of the occupation under the martial law of the invading or occupying army, whether any proclamation declaring martial law or any public warning to the inhabitants has been issued or not. Martial law is the immediate and direct effect and consequence of occupation or conquest.
Yes, and that's one of the major reasons why I always tell people, before they even consider start doing any instruments where they're setting up a state and or using the UCCs, that they must study international law and the war powers also, understanding what is being done.
They have to. I was before a federal judge, and I think what turned the whole thing for me is in my affidavit, and I read it to her. I kept reiterating that I was not a threat to the government or any of their interests. And I had studied administrative law, and in there it's replete with citations that talk about the rights of the United States. And obviously you have to understand that this United States that they're talking about is a corporation. And it tells you when you get in these books, it tells you that it's a corporation. But you got to understand that this is all contract law. It's privately, it's private, and contract involves voluntary consent. We are voluntarily participating in a lot of this. If somebody will say, well, this wasn't ratified or that wasn't ratified or properly ratified, it didn't have to be because you are voluntarily consenting, contracting with it. Private law is not subject to any ratification or anything. Private law is contract law, property law, tort law, and status law. Those are the laws that fall under private law. Public law is constitutional law, criminal law, administrative law, and public international law. All right? You're either on one side or the other. If you're operating in the private, the laws that regulate your interaction is contract, property, tort, and status. And status is a derivative of property law, actually, because you'll get the law of status. When you get a 4th edition Black's Law Dictionary, you'll see the law of status in there. But most people do not understand the distinction between public law and private law. And that is what everything breaks down to, public and private.
Exactly. And understanding person in person, the corpse distinguished from the living, the allodial distinguished from the feudal. Yes, the public distinguished from the private.
We are under a feudal system, most definitely. It's a feudal system. We don't own anything. Everything's registered with the state. That's what the birth certificate is. It's registered with the state. It's effectively connected to a trade or business within the United States because that birth certificate goes from the Department of Vital Statistics to the Department of Commerce to the Department of the Treasury to the Depository Trust Corporation, and then it's held in a holding company called C Corporation. So right there, your labor, that birth certificate is just like a car title, and it's called pledging. And just like when you go to a pawn shop and pledge your car title and get money, the United States does that. They get car titles to babies, and they go to the pawn shop called the Federal Reserve and pawn it and get money.
Yep, and this is the very same reason why since 1913 with those liens, they set up the dead pledge, which is called a mortgage.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. The dead pledge. So it's like, so in doing this secured party creditor process, what I'm attempting to get people to see is that it's about business, first of all right? Either you're going to engage in business within the United States or you're not. That's just the fundamental question. Are you going to do business with these people, or are you not going to do business with these people? Now, there are ways to do business with these people and maintain your private status, and the only way you can do that is through a trust. And in doing that through a trust, because these numbers, these Social Security, like it talks about in Revelations, the beast, you cannot buy or sell without the mark of the beast. These numbers that you get, Social Security numbers or their tax identification numbers, all are numbers that identify how this entity is going to do business within the United States. And a big problem is that Social Security number. You got to get rid of that Social Security number. That Social Security number constitutes a minimum contact, and if you're doing business utilizing that Social Security number, you can't say nothing.
That's right.
Matter of fact,
that's right.
When they pull you over and you have a driver's license, one of the things they'll ask you for is ask you for your Social Security number and date of birth.
Yep.
So, and getting this private trust, what you're doing is, and when we talk about trust management, we have to realize that the IRS is behind everything. They got a thing called CRIST with these courts. It's called Court Registry Investment Systems. And each one of these court cases is monetized. They're assigned a CUSIP number. And CUSIP, of course, is the Committee on Uniform Securities Identification Process, which is a number that they assign for securities, to track securities. And each one of these cases are securitized. Warrants, which are checks, are cashed at the Treasury Department. You can go in your state statute and find this out. Every time, like in Georgia, every time a judge signs a warrant, he gets $5. I don't know if people know that or not. But the warrants are checks, and they're cashed at the Treasury Department. And it's a way that they are guaranteeing the collection of a debt. Because you have become, once you get a public charge, you become a drain on the public. And if you're not bonded, that's why, let me go back to this public charge doctrine one more time. I'm going to read this to everybody. And I want people to, first of all, understand in your mind that first that you're foreign to the United States. You're foreign. All right, so when I read this public charge, you're like an immigrant. Public charge. It's called the public charge doctrine. Okay, let me read this to everyone. Thought I'd already put it up. Yeah, right here, public charge doctrine. I'm gonna put this in the chat room. This is important for people to understand what's going on. Why you're being attacked? You're not bonded, and you gotta understand some historical information to understand, the public sector and why bonds are required, especially when there's no money. Now, when you read this public charge doctrine, it says it is one of the oldest and most venerated components of American immigration policy. It continues to be debated by policymakers and reported in the news, for this provision is as timely and central today as it was in America's earliest days. But this is still central. Now, let me go on down and read it. It says, what is the public charge doctrine? A public charge is someone who cannot provide for himself and thus relies on public assistance for a substantial part of his livelihood. It is someone who is a charge. Notice that word charge. What do they give you when you get arrested? They what? Charge you.
Yep.
It is someone who is a charge or responsibility of the public. Individuals who are deemed, and the word deemed is another word that you have to be very, very cautious of. When you look up the word deemed is when they want to establish a legal fiction. That is a very, very important word. Matter of fact, that word is so important for people to understand. I'm going to pause right here. I'm going to go to the Black's Law Dictionary real quick, and I'm going to read you the definition of this word deemed. That is, you will see this word And when you see this word, immediately when you see this word, your antennas should always go up. Always. When you see this word deemed, when they deem something. Let me read this definition of deemed to everyone out here. Okay, it's read this definition to you, deemed. Now, when you read these definitions in the Black's Law, it's important also that you read the expert commentary that follows the definition. Yeah. I always make a practice to read everything. When I look up a word, I read everything under the word. Everything.
Put it in context.
All right?
Yeah.
Yes. All right, that's a verb, deemed. And it's also important when they tell you what is a verb, pronoun, and noun, to treat something as if it were really something else. Or, two, it has qualities that it does not have. All right, let me read that again. To treat something as if it were really something else, or as if it has qualities that it does not have. Now, if everybody knows what the definition of a legal fiction is, a legal fiction is an assumption that something is true, even though it may be untrue, especially in judicial reasoning, to alter how legal rule operates. Now, let me read the expert commentary under deem. It says, deem has been traditionally considered to be a useful word when it is necessary to establish a legal fiction, either positively by deeming something to be what it is not, or negatively by deeming something not to be what it is. All of the uses of the word should be avoided. Read that under deemed. You get a 9th edition or 8th edition.
Yes, because essentially that's where they used the brand system to create the misclassification, and so they were deemed as something they're not, including the fact that the Europeans used the deeming system to place their names on the people so that whatever they buy or sell with the mark or the number of the beast immediately goes under the state's jurisdiction, thus the wardship tenures that they use. And so the booty and prize principle of the military flag should be better understood with that, inclusive of the district courts collecting up all of those warrants, or what you would call those charges, etc. And people need to know that too.
Yeah, it's a tax. And deem, one of the first words I ever looked up when I first started studying this, the first time I ever picked up a Black's Law dictionary and looked up a word, the first word I turned to was legal fiction. Because I've been hearing, I was hanging around some guys, and they were talking about fictions, and it's a fiction. So I was saying, I want to know what this word legal fiction means. It is very important for people to understand that word. There are whole books written on that word, and when you read a lot of Supreme Court justice opinions and so forth, you'll see them refer to it. Also, they'll say, I don't understand why we're doing this. It's nothing, but I saw a Supreme Court justice says, fiction anyway. I actually saw that in a case citation where a judge had a dissenting opinion, and he said that. He said, this is a fiction. It's a fiction. I'm like, wow, I can't believe the judge said that. But right here, you'll see a lot of stuff like that. If you spend any time in a law library, you'll see a lot. You'll come across a lot of things. But when you read this word legal fiction, one thing that always grabbed me about legal fiction was in the expert commentary where it talks about the legal fiction. This is what they're doing today in society. I mean, this says it all. Let me read it to you. It says, legal fiction, an assumption that something is true, even though it may be untrue, made especially in judicial reasoning to alter how legal rule operates. Okay, that's what I just said. Now, specifically, a device by which a legal rule or institution is diverted from its original purpose to accomplish indirectly some other object. Didn't that sound like when the United States got taken over by a corporation?
Yeah.
Now, here's something I want to direct people's attention to. It says the constructive trust is an example of legal fiction. Now, in your court cases, When you look at that all caps of the name that is on that case, that is called a constructive trust, and they have something called a trustee ex officio. It's called a trustee ex officio. That's what you're designated as. You're designated the trustee of a constructive trust, which lets you know it's equitable, which also lets you know that you can complete an administrative process. This is the reason why you complete an administrative process, because you can only approach equity with clean hands and in good faith. Now let me read this expert commentary on legal fiction. It says, I employ the expression legal fiction to signify any assumption which conceals or affects to conceal the fact that a rule of law has undergone alteration, its letter remaining unchanged, its operation being modified. In other words, they change the laws, but they don't change the words. It goes on to say, let me read this one. This was the great one. It says, legal fiction is the mask that progress must wear to pass the faithful but blur-eyed watchers of our ancient legal treasures. But though legal fictions are useful in thus mitigating or absorbing the shock of innovation, they work havoc in the form of intellectual confusion. This right here is basically telling you, and it's funny, Morris R. Cohan, really interesting, Law and Social Order. And this book was written in 1933. It's telling you right here that they had to do all of this because things have to change. And in order to make the necessary changes without alerting the public, they had to resort to legal fictions. Very, very, very interesting. But let me get back to this public charge. Individuals who are deemed as likely to become public charges of the public are excluded from entering the United States. If an immigrant becomes a public charge, he may be deported. With the rise of the welfare state in the United States since the Progressive era, public assistance has increasingly come to the civil government. However, public aid historically had a heavy private sector, voluntary, charitable aspect. The policy of excluding potential public charges seeks to ensure that individuals unable or unwilling to sustain themselves not burden society. It embodies the idea that an immigrant should be self-sufficient and contribute to the society, granting him the privilege of becoming a new member. It is one of the conditions of the social contract. And let me go to the roots real quick. I'm going to drop down. It says public charge doctrine has been part of American immigration law since colonial days. A key long-standing concern from the time of provincial and state regulation of immigration was with the coming of persons who might become a burden to the community. Both colonies and states sought to protect themselves by exclusion of potential public charges. The English colony of Massachusetts enacted the earliest American public charge laws in 1645. The arrival in the colonies of undesirables spurred other colonies to enact similar laws. By the end of the 17th century, American colonists were especially reluctant to extend a welcome to impoverished foreigners and the rogues and vagabonds that England had so graciously decided she could spare. Many colonies protected themselves. Now, watch this. Listen to this. Here it is. Here it is. Many colonies protected themselves against public charges through such measures as mandatory reporting of ship passengers, immigrant screening, and exclusion upon arrival of designated undesirables, and requiring bonds for potential public charges. For example, a law enacted in colonial Massachusetts in 1700 kept out the infirm who had no security against becoming public charges. The law required ship captains to post bonds for lame, impotent, or infirm passengers who were incapable of maintaining themselves. The bond requirement sought to prevent the new arrival from becoming reliant on public relief. Without a bond from the captain, the vessel had to return the person to his home country. This is why today I found all of this out by doing research for some Latinos who were getting extradited, and I went into immigration and naturalization, and I found out about immigration bonds. And this is also refers to the consulate. They're not telling y'all all of this stuff. They're not giving out this information that you can privately bond yourself. You have to be bonded against a public charge. This is the whole entire reason for doing a secure party creditor process. First of all, you have to be able to distinguish in your mind what is public and what is private. The public is bankrupt. There is no money in the public. Everything in the public is bonded. That's what they do to you. When you become a U.S. citizen with your birth certificate, they sell that for bonds. And then they issue promissory notes, which are Federal Reserve notes. You have been bonded. Did anybody have any? Did you have another question? I'm going to move on and take some more questions. I'm going to leave your mic open if you want to jump in, though. Did you hear me, Taj?
It's long, good brother. I heard you.
Okay. Let me go to 317 area code real. Let me go to Indiana real quick. Indiana. You're on high frequency radio. Peace. Can you hear me? Peace. How you doing? Yes, I can hear you.
Great show today, Yusef, man. You really hitting it on the nose for me. I'm sitting up here taking notes, but I had a question for you as far as the bond goes. I was studying some other sites a while back before I got on to your show and stuff, and they were saying that when you do your master discharge and indemnity bond, that's the highest bond. So it's like the first in line, first in time as far as the bonds are. Now, what you just said now is, kind of supersedes what they were talking about, what I previously learned.
I use a master indemnity. I use a master discharge and indemnity bond. I'm not in conflict with that. It's just a bond. It's a bond. It's a bond.
Okay, so when they do a lien, you do a UCC1 commercial lien, and I did mine in the state of Maryland, in which you corrected me on. It should be in my state of Indiana.
Let me put this out here. A lot of those guys do those Maryland liens, and I'm not going to say there's not any credence to the Maryland lien, because the United States files their agricultural liens in the state of Maryland as well, and that's what they basically are emulating of these agricultural liens, because we looked at it as farm property. But these UCC1s are notices of a claim that you're filing against your estate, and that's where you find everything. You find the instructions how to do things under Article 9 of the UCC. Don't just follow people and have people doing things because they tell you to do it. You learn how to file a security agreement against property, read Article 9 of the UCC. It'll tell you how to do it.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
Right.
So when is your class? When are you doing this class, brother?
I think I've done like 2 or 3 already. I'll do another one I'll probably do another one this weekend, or I might do it tomorrow. I don't know. It depends. Tomorrow's a holiday. I don't know if people would want to participate in it tomorrow. Maybe not. But I'll do it.
How is this going to be different from your other classes? Are you going to be going over the same stuff? Because I sent you an email requesting the webinar, and I was going to pay for it, but if you're going to do another one.
I got the emails. People want to pay for the webinar. Trust me, I got all of it. I'm getting to it. I'm traveling. You will get. Trust me, you're going to get some answers today. I'm going to send them out today. You're going to get it today. Okay, brother. Basically, what I do is, yes, I do go over the same information, because there's new people coming to the webinars who haven't heard the information before. And then I try to go in on details. I don't do everything exactly the same. I try to give a little bit more detail on a particular point, on one aspect of something. But fundamentally, I try to get people to master the fundamentals. I want you to understand that it's public and private. I want you to understand that it's all about taxing. I want you to understand what within the United States and without the United States means. I want you to understand what private rights are. You know, you need to understand all those things. Then next you have to understand what your conduct has to be. You have to conduct yourself in a certain way. You know, you cannot say fuck the United States and then be over in their yard trying to dig up, you know, put up a lemonade stand. You can't do that. You can't do that. You just can't do that. You can't say. And some people do it and they don't know they're doing it. Some people don't know, and that's why I say study minimum contact, because there are lots of minimum contacts that people may be unaware of. We just know of the basics like birth certificate, social security card, driver's license, you know, things of that nature. But there are other things that you could be doing that could be construed as a minimum contact.
Let me jump in. Hey, minimum contact is having a Federal Reserve note in your pocket.
Exactly. That is a minimum contact. That is definitely a major one.
So, are we supposed to get the black card by doing certain notes, contracting with banks and you know, international bills of exchange, or so we won't have to use Federal Reserve notes?
Exactly. That's exactly right. What do you think they got the Article 3 of the UCC and the United Nations Conference on International Trade Law? Now, some people may argue that we're not a signatory to that. Here's my statement. Here's my statement to that. Either you're a slave or you're not a slave. I'm no man's slave. Now, to participate, if they're going to force me to participate in commerce within their particular jurisdiction, I'm going to write my own instruments. And then we're going to take it, I'm going to do the correct processes on them, and we're going to see whether or not what I did was effective or not. But you're not going to make me your slave. Utilizing Federal Reserve notes is nothing but slavery. That's all it is.
So Yusef, should I do my UCC one over, or just take the copies that I filed in Maryland and file them in the state of Indiana?
You can always amend a UCC. You don't have to do it over. If you have a UCC1 number, I would not file it over. You already have your filing number. You need to keep that. You have to update that filing number every 5 years. It doesn't just go perpetually forever. So you always have to send a notice, a continuation notice that you're going to continue your filing. However, if you already have a number, you need to keep that number. Don't get rid of it. Just keep it.
Okay, and that's just
you can amend whatever you can amend and add whatever you want.
I'm sorry, that's just a continuation document that you need to file with the UCC? Or
if it's approaching that 5-year mark, they have that notice is available on your Secretary of State website.
Okay. All right. Thank you, brother. I'm going to let you get to some more calls, man. Great call. Great show today, man. And I'm honored to be on the same wavelength with you and Taj, man, because I first started out listening to Taj back in the day. So I'm honored he even listens. He even tunes into the show. So, man, you're putting out some very good information, brother, man, and keep going hard, brother.
Thank you. I'm honored he listens to the show as well. I didn't say that, but I'm very honored. You know, when you have distinguished people who come in and listen to the show, it just means that, hey, I must be doing something pretty good, you know. You can't hurt people's attention.
All right, man. Peace, y'all.
Okay, peace. Let me bring in New York real quick. 917 area code 1024. You're on High Frequency Radio.
Peace to the gods.
Peace to the gods, brother. How you doing?
I'm excellent. Yeah, so you touching on the area that where I pretty much got stonewalled where I was up to. I was trying to get to. Remember before I spoke about the non-resident alien?
Right.
It comes up again, right?
Right.
My only question was, when you were talking about at the beginning, how does that, I think that's how they tie it into the sequestration thing. The sequester, and the way I see it, when he was putting it down, we have to be registered or get in that foreign status. So we're without, and we're recognized on record as such. So could I think when they do the grab for everybody's personal assets and so forth, like they did in Cyprus, we need to be without, and this is the way to do it. This is what I was trying to learn and get into. What do you think about that?
Well, I think I understand your question, but basically it breaks down the jurisdiction and in personam jurisdiction, them getting, because it sounded like you said something about sequestration, but they took the property and sequestrated. What's the property?
That's what it's all about. Remember they recently came out with the sequestration thing? The sequester and all of that?
Right. Oh, wait a minute. Say, I didn't hear you. What'd you say? Some research paper?
Remember when the government came out with the sequestration or the sequester and all of that, when he was talking about the sequester? Same thing they doing in Europe. They just call it a different name. And then they did it with Cyprus, remember, for weekends, when they grabbed like X amount of percent of everybody personal assets in the banks. You remember that?
You know how to do that.
Whatever you got in the bank belong to them. Well, they can
No, not that.
They can take it at any time under martial law or whatever.
Right. Well, I mean, if it's in, they can take. Well, let me answer the question. Yeah, I think I know what you're asking me. It breaks down once again to jurisdiction is everything. All right, exactly. Jurisdiction. What gives them jurisdiction versus what does not give them jurisdiction? And then it breaks down next to your conduct, not your paperwork, but your activities. Your activities, your conduct, your activities, what you are doing. Because a lot of brothers think that, I got this paperwork filed, and that's it. It's like I gave an example, an easy example. It's like if you have a lemonade stand, and you got your house, you down the street, you got your house, you're more, you got all your paperwork put in, and you put private property outside the house. This is private property, no trespassing. Okay, the United States is going to respect that. They're going to respect private property, no trespassing. However, if you give them any reason to come in your house, meaning that maybe you came out of the property, took some of their Federal Reserve notes, and then ran back in the house, now you have given them a reason to come into your house. Or if you come out of your house and go down the street in one of their properties and put up a lemonade stand. Now, and then you come and try to say, no, man, this is fine. I'm a lord. This is my right. They say, okay, well, that's fine. This is what they're saying to you. That's fine. However, you just set up a lemonade stand on my property, and you got to pay me for it. I'm going to extract some type of tax from you for that activity. I don't give a damn if you're a diplomat, Moor, Native American, boo-boo, shakuku, whoever. That's my property. I have rights over that property, and I'm going to utilize my property the way that I choose and see fit. And that goes for if you got a bank account, you use the Social Security number, that's my Social Security number.
I agree.
You know what I'm saying? So that bank account belongs to them. So you use their property, their Social Security number to do it.
I get that part. That's why I said before we got to do everything in the trust. We can't have anything in our name.
You got to do everything in trust.
We got to get a new EIN number and work through that new EIN number and get off the grid. I get that. It's just a matter of getting the ducks in a row and getting the word out there.
I'm gonna tell you how you learn how to have the appropriate conduct is by studying trust law. You should make that your study. Trust management. Let me put trust law. Trust management. When you start learning trust management, that teaches you everything you want to learn about being private.
I'm just a trustee. I don't make nothing.
Your nationality, all that stuff right there, you learn trust management, all that plugs into that. Trust management. All of it. They don't want that information out because there's not a lot of people in the country that know how to do private trust. When I say trust management, I'm talking about managing a private trust, not a living trust or a statutory trust. I'm talking about a private trust. Learning how to manage a private trust. That will teach you everything you need to know about what we're talking about. Everything. That's where it's all at. That's where privacy is at.
That's where I want to get. That's what I'm trying to learn.
Well, I'm going to tell you, there's a document on the internet. I'll get this out to everybody. It is called, let me see if I can get the link to it. And I'll put the link on that you can start with. I mean, it's finding private trust management information is very difficult. It's not published. It is information that they try to keep out of the public scene.
Of course.
They do. They try to keep it out of the public.
They want to keep us in the public so they can rape us. I know.
Say what?
They want to keep us in the public so they can rape us. I know.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, they make thing is taxes. All right. Paying taxes. All right, you got people say that. Yeah, it's all about it's that tax. If you want to attract their attention, tell somebody they don't have to pay taxes. That's the quickest way to have these people knock on your door. Now, what we're saying is no. I'm not saying I don't have to pay taxes. I'm just saying I don't have to pay taxes with Federal Reserve notes.
Right.
I'm going to pay my taxes.
Or my energy.
You can pay your taxes with public funds, or you pay your taxes with private funds. All right? Now, that necessarily gets into a discussion about value. Okay? Obviously, that's going to come up. The next discussion is going to be value. Why? I had a police officer ask me one time, they arrested me and said, well, what gives your promissory notes, because they put me on television, what gives your promissory notes any value? And then I asked him, I said, well, what gives Federal Reserve notes value? What gives value is you got to add value to the system. And this is my next subject matter that I want to delve into. And that's getting into why we have to come together as a collective. Once we start doing these trusts, and I just put a link up in the chat room for unincorporated business organizations. Once we start doing these trusts, we need to start building something. It's not a thing where you can just put some paperwork together and then here you go, blah, blah, blah. You got
we got to have a business plan.
It quid pro quo. There has to be some value to what you're doing. You have to do something. And that's why I tell people to study the public charge doctrine, because that's exactly what this is all about. This is all about people who are sitting on their ass doing nothing. That's what it's all about. You're not contributing your fair share to society.
The good book speaks about that.
And the world at large.
And you do not work, does not deserve to eat.
Exactly. So you got to work. We're put here to work, and we don't have to work for them. Really, I'll tell you this. Your businesses are supposed to be family-based. That's where business starts. That's where these foreigners got it right. They come over here, and they put their wife in the gas station, and all this stuff right here. That's how we're supposed to be doing it. Your business is supposed to be a family business, like the mafia. All the wealthy people's businesses are family-based.
Society.
Business starts with families first, and then communities, and then from communities, states, and then nations.
Right, we're a microcosm. Family's supposed to be the microcosm.
Supposed to be the microcosm. As above, so below. That's the law of nature. It's the law of nature.
We got to be rooted in nature, not superstition. That's our problem.
I superstitious.
We don't know the difference between nonfiction and fiction. We're always caught up in the fiction.
Hey, let me bring in another caller real quick. I'm bringing in another caller.
All right, bro.
I'm gonna leave your mic open. I'll leave your mic open. Let me go to 469 area code 6123. You're on high frequency radio. 469 area code. Your mic's open.
Oh, my bad, brother. I was just listening. I didn't know I was in the queue, brother. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Just hit one on your phone for me.
Okay.
All right. 302 area code 8862. You're on high frequency radio. 302 area code. Delaware. Oh, they hung up on me. Scaring them off, okay. 269-0837. Huh?
Never mind, you got them now. Go ahead, I'll wait.
269-093, 269 area code.
Peace, peace.
Michigan.
Peace, peace.
Peace, brother. How you doing?
Hey, how you doing, man? Is it me you're talking to?
Yeah, I'm talking to you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I noticed my brother might have called in. Hey, Yusef, brother, this is King Stacey L. What's going on, man?
All right, brother. How's it going, man? Good, great,
all right.
Actually, called in, brother.
Actually, the brother in Indiana, he answered my question. You know, but I did want to say one thing, brother. You know, it just, you know, you put so much on my brain, man. I got to think, man, and I love that. I love to be challenged, man. You know, to the point where, actually, man, the other night I had a dream about you, man. But before I had went to sleep, I had put an old school movie on for my kids, which was Steve Martin, The Man with Two Brains, which is why I sent you the email that I sent you the other day. If I could download your brain, brother, hey, I'd be a bad dude around here. But, you know, that's all I had to say, just to flatter you a little bit, bro. I'm on the call.
Let me say this about that, brother. All I did was just apply myself. I read documents over and over and over, and I'm just sharing it with you. I mean, I'm still learning. And as I learn, you know, I'm still learning too. So it's a never-ending process. Just develop a love for learning. If Taj is on here, he's the same way. You know, we all readers. We just read and I look up words. I don't think I'm any smarter than anyone. I may have a little bit more drive than a lot of other people, but that's about it. You know what I'm saying? It's not that I'm smarter. We all have this capability, trust me. We all have this capability. I think if anything I was gifted with, it was with some sort of discernment, maybe a little bit, to see certain things and to try to make things plain to other people. But other than that, you know, you can get this, man. Trust me. It's not that difficult. It's not that difficult. You can get this. Believe me. They make it difficult intentionally. To make themselves appear more intelligent, and they're not. They're not. They're only good at deception. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's it.
You know, you really can't read too much into it and come out with a different result.
Yeah, and that happens. That's why I try to just keep it simple. Like sometimes people call me and say, "Well, I heard this." I say, "Wait, whoa. I always go back to my rules. It's public. And it's private. You know, I always bring them right back to that, okay? All that complex stuff you talking about, don't let them take you there. Okay, now, are you talking public or private, brother? Let's start right there first. Are you talking about something public-related or privately related? Because I need to know what rules are going to apply. Like my co-host said yesterday, I got to know who I'm talking to first. Am I talking to a debt collector or I'm talking to a creditor? Because I'm going to use a different language talking to a debt collector as opposed to a different language using to a creditor. So am I talking to a public entity? Is this some sort of public matter or is this some sort of private matter? Let me establish that first. And that's what you always do.
Okay.
But okay, brother, I appreciate you calling in. I'm going to go to the next call. But thank you, man. I appreciate the love. I appreciate you calling in, man. Thank you.
Oh, appreciate you, bro. All the time. Peace.
All right, peace. Hey, Paul,
Please, let me jump in right quick. You got to go to me. I'm right here.
I'm on John's mic, too.
All right, so check it out. What you just said, public and private. They took private acts, mother signing a birth certificate, you getting a Social Security card, you going to get a driver's license. They took those private acts that you performed, monetized them, utilized them, profited off of them, and yet intend to subjugate you through those means.
Yeah.
All right, that can't be valid. Can't be valid. Upon rebuttal, it's all dead, no disclosure, and anything derived from my autograph, my mother's autograph, constitutes the property of the originator, not the constructor for fraud and delusion, but the originator who put the live energy into that autograph that generated all those things for them to enrich themselves from. So we should be able to rebut their assumption of minimum contacts, flip it around on their faces, and start spanking them with it.
Hey, you know why white people are better businessmen than we are? Because we too emotional. Business don't have no emotion in it. No morals or nothing like that.
Now, hold it, time. Don't go no further. Because what you just said is being sociopathic. So being sociopathic affords you opportunities. It affords you some position that should be appreciated or studied. I disagree. I'm going to tell you now. We got to talk real careful and real slow. Because what you said is correct, but it is their training program for sociopathic behavior. They allow people to disregard the reality and the presence of other people based on business. That's Brodsky. That's BS. We got to stop that too. They're generating a people who are capable of disconnecting themselves from the suffering of other people based on a fictitious, worthless piece of paper called a Federal Reserve note. That's all insanity.
It's all business.
That's my point. It's not business. It's insanity. It is a seething, spiritually wicked construct of subjugation used to divide the human family. The Pope just came out with a whole 220-something page, John, talking about the ills and the fouls of capitalism. This is their Pope. Just issued it yesterday. I'm gonna hit on it a little bit tomorrow. Just hit on it yesterday, day before yesterday it came out. We have totally applied critical thinking to every aspect and nuance of all conversations, because the level of fraudulent language, the level of misguided deception, the level of intent to injure is prevalent throughout all of it, and none of it can be overlooked or taken for granted, including what the Pope just put out, because I want to see if he put out the fact that he's robbing the lands of the copper-colored people here in the Western Hemisphere. I want to see if he finally told the truth about that. So if he has it, everything he just put out, no matter how good it may be, is still cloaked with the deception of injury, harm. We got to wake up and apply critical thinking across the board to everything that they're doing and everything that they're claiming.
But see, here's the thing. I understand. I'm with you. I don't want to sound like maybe I'm kind of training myself to be less emotional too, because I'm looking, when I read this stuff, what I try to do is I try to put aside my personal biases. That's what I try to do. I mean, even if I'm even if I'm talking about something like homosexuality, but I don't allow myself to get emotional about it. I'll look at it from a scientific point of view. I say, okay, they say that homosexuality is something natural. Well, they may have a basis in that when you look in a morphodite or something like that. I approach things like that. It's not that I condone the behavior or the activity, but what I try to do first and foremost is I always try to maintain being a scientist first. That's right. Now, when you look at the UCC, under the UCC, fraud is permissible if it is acquiesced to. They are able to use security. So all these things that they're doing, they're not out of bounds in what they're doing because the rules of the game allow them to implement fraud, deception, all these different things that they're doing. That's permissible in the game. And let me tell you why. Let me tell you why that's permissible. Because first of all, ignorance of the law is no excuse, number one. Number two, faith without works is dead. There's a spiritual aspect that goes along with this, and that is, well, in the Morris it also called standing on your square. If you allow someone to shake you off your square, that is an indication that there is a lack of faith, and lack of faith is adultery with the Creator. Freedom requires strength. It is not the playground for weak individuals. I'm sorry to say that. My grandma, she said something to me one time I thought was real cold-blooded. My grandma told me this. She said it was real cold-blooded. She said doctors have messed up the human race because they saving babies that were meant to die at birth. It's like baby that might be too weak to live, and because the doctors are able to put them on, some sort of life support or something. Like my daughter was a premature preemie, and I think the Most High forever for that, because I love my daughter. I can't even explain it, but the thing is, I understood as a scientist. I understood her statement that are we violating some of the laws of nature? You really cannot play this game if you do not understand natural law.
Now, let me jump in real quick.
Natural law, everything is a derivative of natural law. So if you're not an expert in natural law, you're really not even qualified to talk about none of this stuff. Because all of it are derivatives of natural law. If it is not a derivative of natural law, it is some sort of anomaly or something to that effect, then what you have is somebody trying to be God, which means you are dealing with an insane person. But nature is going to take care of that individual. It's impossible to go against natural law. It's impossible. It's impossible.
That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. They're demonstrating their insanity because they're going against natural law. They're going against natural law.
I don't agree. I don't agree. I think that the people
agrees. That's why it's fighting them back. You think fracking, some kind of way fracking makes sense in natural law? The right to plummet. Wait, let me finish. You get the right to pump toxic, life-changing, and life-destroying chemicals to Mother Earth in order to extract something that you can then sell for currency, paper. You think that somewhere that is permissible in natural law? That falls under what they want to say to conquer, inject and conquer, subdue and conquer the whole world? I'm going to answer that. I'm going to answer that question like this: there is a video on YouTube. It's called "Something Is Happening," and this is the stuff they won't show you on TV. All the natural disasters that are occurring all over the world. There are more earthquakes last year than has been in the last 100 years. Yes, I know.
They're doing that with Earth.
The Earth will take care of them. When you see a tornado rip through a community, the earth getting rid of these things that are plaguing her. The planet Mother Earth has been here millions of years. She ain't going nowhere. She knows how to take care of herself. Trust me on that.
I want the minds that we have to start being right now we are ensnared in their web of words.
Right.
Because we can't navigate our way successfully through these words in order to manifest what is to be.
And you know why? Because we don't have any business being in the public. The public is the land of fictions, of actors, of people, of titles, of nobility. That is their playground. We don't have any business playing on it, period. And if we do play on it, we should do it through a trust, and we are supposed to appoint trustees who are experts at playing on that playground. That's how you play the game. You go get, like for instance, if you get a community of people together and you form a community trust, and you say, okay, we're going to start investing in real estate. The community, all the community does is contribute to the trust corpus. The duty to increase the value of the trust and to make sure it is implemented properly for the benefit of the beneficiaries, that duty is on the trustees. And those trustees should be carefully selected. In some cases, they could even be attorneys, if necessary. But you go and get individuals who are experts at operating in the public. That's the purpose of public school, to get people experts at working in the public. And I'm not an expert in the public. I have no business in the public. I'm a private man. We got private rights. We have private God-given rights. That's where we remain. When you start getting out of your lane and into their area, then they have a right to create whatever kind of world they want. That's why it's a fictitious world, because they got the right to construct of their own mind. And who are you to come along and dictate to another individual who is a creation of the creator of the balanced universe how they are going to have a construct of their own mind?
They can't have a construct in their mind that they utilize to manipulate me like Puppet and Pinocchio. That's what I mean about it being twisted. They can't use the construct of another with unclean hands to then determine and dictate to me my physical now existence. That's crooked. That's twisted. And fraud viscerates all contracts, even the most solemn of contracts. So everything that we're talking
Only fraud viscerates all contracts if you can prove intent to defraud, which is a very difficult thing to do.
Not one that hasn't been disclosed. The intent to defraud is apparent on the prima facie in the absence of disclosure. Intent to defraud, to harm, to injure is prima facie in the absence of full disclosure. So there you go.
Because you know as well as I do that there's a word out there called willful ignorance. When you have a duty to investigate yourself.
And so when you reject that willful ignorance and you correct that willful ignorance, and in the reality of contract law, 2 signatures are required. So none of the instruments used to bind you can be considered valid.
And you know what? That's because it's not a contract, they're securities, which is why we're sitting here talking about the UCC.
They're securities, and constitute contracts. Whoa. They're securities, we agree, that they claim to be contracts which constitute minimum contact. So it still falls under the guise of a contract that's eviscerated because of non-disclosure.
Yeah, and so far you're right. I'm gonna give you that. You're right. But
I think this needs to be the intellectual level. We need to apply a spiritually intellectual level to all that you teach. We need to begin to apply a spiritual, intellectual level to all that you teach. And in order for that to happen, people have to remove themselves from the particular situation and pain that's causing them to learn this and realize the primal, fundamental realities of what you're talking.
Well, that's why I said earlier that you really can't play this game if you don't know natural law. That is the natural law. When I say natural law, I'm talking about the spiritual laws. Spiritual laws supersede everything because nothing exists in the material world without existing in the spiritual and mental world first. Nothing. So if you're dealing with the physical plane, you are dealing with effects. And as long as you're dealing with effects, you have no power. I like how in the Matrix, the Maravichian, he told Neo and Morpheus, he said, and here you come to me with no power. He said, because y'all don't have no cause. The power is in the cause. Weakness is in the effect. You have to control the cause of things. If you're not at the cause of everything, you have no power. And the ultimate cause of everything is thought. It's thought. So what we have to do is we have to change our thinking, which is what I'm attempting to do. Because these people have no power over us except through deception. They have no power. What power they have is deception. That's it. And that deception only works because the target or the mark is ignorant. That's just my take on it. Let me take another call. We'll continue.
All right, I love you. Great show, man.
I love you too. You making some very powerful points. I always like it when I always like it when you come on and do a show with me. I always do some powerful points. Let me go to 1111111. Somebody.
Hello.
You're on High Frequency Radio. You're on the air.
How's everything, Yusef?
Great. How you doing, brother?
Good. Good to hear you. I love all your shows and stuff. A couple questions that I wanted to ask you. I'll try to be brief. First of all, do you have any copies, any templates of how to fill a UCC one out correctly? Is there any templates? Because you used to have a Dropbox, but you said it no longer exists anymore.
Yeah, I give them out in my webinars. I give out templates in my webinars of UCCs.
Okay, do you have okay, that's archive. So how do I get that? I know you charge for that, right?
Yes, I do charge for that. Yes, I charge for that.
Okay, so what's the usually cost to get that? Because I definitely need to learn how to fill out a proper UCC 1. So I definitely need to get
email me, and I'll give you that information. Email me at highfrequencyblogtalk@gmail.com. I don't like to go over there and this costs this, and then I don't do that.
I'm sorry. I should have said your donation. I should have said your donation. Forgive me.
Yeah, exactly. I don't mix public and private.
All right, and that's one thing I wanted to cover with you also, is this public and private thing. Now, you're always saying that we're 14th Amendment slaves. And what I'm getting lost with that is when does the 14th Amendment overthrow the 11th Amendment? Because the 11th Amendment says
The 14th Amendment, all it did was make corporations citizens. What they did was it was initially intended for slaves, and then they just did it to everybody. They gave everybody this legal fiction entity. A 14th Amendment citizen is a legal fiction. That's all it is. It's a legal fiction. It's not even a person. It's a legal fiction.
Yeah, I understand that, but what I don't understand is when does the 14th Amendment overthrow the 11th Amendment? Because the 11th Amendment say in these courts you have immunity.
The 14th Amendment overthrows the 11th Amendment if you are conducting yourself like a 14th Amendment citizen. Actions speak louder than words. That's why I'm sitting there talking about trust law, trust management. So it's about it ain't about paperwork. So you're expecting somebody just give you your rights. You got to take your rights. Nobody giving you nothing. Ain't nobody giving you nothing.
Okay.
Ain't nobody giving you nothing.
Okay. Well, my question is, how do you invoke your 11th Amendment right if they're going to automatically make you a 14th Amendment corporate fiction for the purpose of revenue use? By
your conduct, not demonstrating that you're doing any 14th Amendment activity. What's 14th Amendment activity? What's the 14th Amendment? It's a U.S. citizen, right?
Yes.
Okay, so to get your 11th Amendment, you need not be a U.S. citizen.
So if you got a Federal Reserve note, you don't need to be doing anything that's connected with being a U.S. citizen. Okay, well that's sad. Okay, that's a little clarity on that. Okay, now the next thing I wanted to ask you about is a Supreme Court case called Redfield versus Parks, where it specifically says that they can only tax corporations. It's 1930. That's the Supreme Court case.
And I just said that 14th Amendment citizens were corporations. They legal fictions. I think thank you for bringing home that fact. You're absolutely correct. That's all they are taxing a corporation. And an individual, let me read this to you. Let me read this. This is where they trick all these tax protesters. Every single one of them get tricked. I watched Freedom to Fascism. Great movie. I had Sherry Peel Jackson on here as well, but everybody involved in it didn't understand one simple fact. And I read about reading one court case where the Supreme Court justice said individuals can be taxed. And I said, damn, that's the word right there, damn individual. Let me look this word up. And so all I did, what anybody can do, is look up the word individual. And Black Thought Dictionary, I just went, well, let me look this word up that they're talking about. Let me do some research on this word individual and see. Because I bet you that's a corporation. So now I get this word, let me look it up, I'm going to pick this word up, and they hit it, because that's what they do. This is a word they do not want you to understand the meaning of. Individual. Right here. Let me give it to you. I'm glad you're telling me all, because you're great. That's why everything breaks down. Everything my man breaks down. There is not a single person in America that can come on my show and disprove public and private. Can't do it. Let me, well, I know they can't because I read what the Supreme Court justices say, number one. But individual.
Well, let me ask you this.
Let's read what individual says. Let's read what individual says. Now, you're going to have to do some research. I got a Black Law 9th edition. That's what I'm reading from. Individual. Existed as an indivisible entity. And what the fuck does that mean? What does that mean?
It means corporation.
Well, I had to go and look up the word entity. I don't know what is an entity. Let me go look at an entity. Let me look up that word entity. Let's look it up. Let's look up the word entity. All right. And I go and look up the word entity, if I can get to it. And lo and behold, what do I find?
Legal fiction?
Entity. Right here. Entity. An organization such as a business or governmental unit that has a legal identity apart from its members or owners. An organization such as a business, a government, a corporation status.
Okay, a corporation. All right.
So when that Supreme Court justice said individuals have to pay income taxes, what was he saying?
Well, you know, I got another quote that says individuals do not have to pay taxes, or not corporations. So these judges be flip-flopping. I mean, what I'll do is I'll email you that case. But what year is your case that you're reading?
I'm gonna put it like this: real living people don't have to pay income tax. Private individuals, this simple. I'm gonna tell you right now. I'm gonna break this down. I don't even have to read the Supreme Court case because I know all the judges are agreement on this part. If you are private, you are tax exempt. If you're a public, your ass is gonna get taxed. And everything in the public operates through corporations. Just like on the Monopoly board, you have been given a token. And there are 7 major tokens. You can either come in as a trust, an estate, a corporation, a company, an association, a partnership, or an individual. And all 7 of those things are legal fiction entities. So if he's using individual, he's using it in the sense of he's talking about a private man or woman. That is the only way, that's the only thing you can mean, because the only thing that makes you tax exempt is if you're private.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this here. Okay. Now, the Erie Thompson case said there's no
Erie versus Thompson Railroad decision, right?
They said there's no lawful money. Okay, that's what it says. Okay, but then Clearfield versus United States says there is federal common law because they're allowed to print commercial money. So, you know, Erie Railroad is saying
First of all, federal common law is not the same as common law. I hope you know that, right?
No, I don't. That's what I'm calling it. That's why I listen.
Federal common law and common law is 2 separate things. They're not the same thing.
I thought the Erie Railroad said there's no federal common law because they took the gold out.
When they took the gold out, let me go back to public and private, okay? When he talked about the Erie versus Railroad decision, he said that he was not effectively connected. He was a private man. He didn't have a contract with the railroad. So he couldn't sue them or something to that effect. I got to go back and read it again, the Erie versus Tompkins Railroad decision. But when you get into this discussion, what you're going to see is that you're dealing with franchises of the United States government. All this goes back to Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 of the United States when you're talking about insular possessions of the United States. Either they are within the United States or without the United States. It's that simple, brother. It applies to everything. Well, Erie versus Railroad decision. Let me read it real quick. I'll pull it up.
Hey, you bring so much clarity to this on the real side.
Huh?
My next question, you're bringing so much clarity to this because my next question, it has a lot to do with a real person and a natural person. Okay, so did you want to read the Erie Railroad first, or did you want to hear my next question?
Okay, now let me talk about that because that was a trick because they have natural persons. That was when they started developing that. That's because everybody was getting on to the person. But once again, they can put whatever definition they want out there to try to confuse people. They use that word natural person to refer to a private man or woman. Because that's the fiction, trying to identify something that's on the other side of the bar, which is a real living soul. But the thing about it is, it's either public, everything is about jurisdiction. I don't give a fuck what word they use. Do they have jurisdiction over you or not? I'm just keeping it real. They either have jurisdiction over you or they don't. They can use whatever word they want to use. The thing is, do they have jurisdiction over you or do they not have jurisdiction over you? And the determining factor of that is going to be your activities, whether or not they are effectively connected with a trade or business within the United States. All the United States is doing is this. What else can a corporation do? That's what corporations do, engage in business. And corporations have sub-corporations called franchises.
Okay. Now, like again, my my next question, I don't know if anybody asked it or not. It was on one of them webinars. But I think it's kind of heavy. Maybe somebody asked it. Somebody didn't ask it, okay? Now, when Brother Sharif was on, and he gave the definition of a debtor, or no, a definition of a consumer, okay?
Right.
That definition of a consumer says a living person, all right? Now, when they bring these foreclosures against the living person, the corporate fiction is so-and-so versus this corporate fiction. All right, now, when he's saying that they can't bring a case against you because they're a debt collector, but also they don't really have the right person on it because they don't have a living person on that complaint. Has anybody asked that question?
Can you let him know? I mean, enough for both of you.
You still there?
Islam Yusef.
Hello?
Islam Yusef.
I'm one of the people on the call. Who am I speaking with?
Oh, this is Taj.
Okay. Did Yusuf get cut off?
Hold on, I thought I got disconnected. We have about a minute left, y'all, in the stream. And if you want to continue on call, you're going to have to call in now, 424-222-5250. You got to call in 424-222-5250. I'm sorry, I got cut off. I didn't catch everything you said. Can you repeat your question for me one more time? I got cut off.
Yes, but okay. Well, I was repeating. When Brother Sharif said the definition of a consumer is a living person. Okay, when they bring a foreclosure against a person, it's not the living person. It's a corporate fiction.
He's right.
So
he's right. And he's 100%. He's 100% right in what he's saying. But here's the thing: they don't make that.
If they're going to bring a case against a corporate fiction and it's not the living person, that should be grounds for dismissal right there also. And the fact that they're a debt collector and not a lender. But they don't have the living person on it. They have the corporate fiction on that complaint.
I'm going to tell you like this. Everything in the public is fictions. They cannot bring an action against a real living person. You can only bring an action against a real living person. Now, let me tell you this. They play the game. Like, I'm going to give you an example of what they do. When you find this information out, because they're not honorable. They're not completely honorable all the time. Let's say you go into court and you start challenging jurisdiction. You start saying I'm a real living man or real living soul. The first thing they do is try to give you a public defender. You know why?
No.
You know why? Because corporations can only be represented by attorneys.
Right?
Corporations can only be represented by attorneys.
What about a civil case, though, not criminal? I'm talking about like a foreclosure. Like I said,
it's all civil. It's all civil. Okay. It's all civil, and it's all the same thing. They just dishonor you. You're being looked at as a trustee. I'm giving you the real, okay? What Brother Sharif is giving you, he's giving you public remedies, you know, how to operate by the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. That's really a remedy for nobody knows this information that I'm talking about right here. I'm giving you the real deal, okay? Under public and private, the only thing that exists in the public is corporations. They cannot mix the two. You cannot mix public and private. That's why everybody in the public has a title. Secretary this, judge this, attorney this, mayor that, governor this, whatever. Everybody in the public, fireman this, officer that. Everybody in the public has a title. Because those are fictions.
Okay.
Let me put it like this. You really don't have no business going into those courts. None.
Well, they will send somebody with a gun to come get you if you don't go.
Well, it's because our conduct up until this point in time, we've already established so many minimum contacts and everything that they are getting. Let me read this again. Let me read this to you again.
All right.
Personal jurisdiction, minimum contacts, protects traditional notions of fair play and substantial justice. Activities of a non-resident are systematic and continuous for a substantial period of time. Notice it says activities of a that's what you are. You're a non-resident alien, and you have activities which are systematic and continuous that protect traditional notions of fair play when they get personal jurisdiction over you.
Okay. All right, well,
listen, I know it sounds confusing, but here's the thing you have to understand. You're looked at as a trustee, and trustees have a fiduciary duty. And that's what you really are. You're a trustee of a constructive trust. That's what that all caps letter name is. And you are looked at as a trustee of that trust, and there is a fiduciary duty that is associated with you that you are expected to perform. And if you don't perform it, there's going to be it's like you said, with legal fiction. They have to utilize legal fiction to keep everything going. They got to have what they're doing, and that's what they're doing. They're doing it under what they're doing is utilizing legal fictions. And that's what corporations are. Corporations are legal fictions.
All right,
they're legal fictions. I understand what you're saying. And you're right. I understand the spirit of what you're saying. But know this, public and private don't mix. I just read you what an individual is.
Oh, yeah, I agree
and what a person
100%.
is.
But my thing is, like I said, I know only all crimes is under Title 50. I'm aware of that. But like I said, my thing is, when they bring these complaints against these civil complaints, never have the living person, and it's a debt collection. So
let me read you the definition of natural person in Wikipedia, and I want you to listen to it real closely. It says in jurisprudence, a natural person is a real human being as opposed to a legal person, which may be private. It all goes back to public and private.
And the thing is, it just learning how to separate yourself from the public. So, taking everything, if you're strictly in the private, then they should leave you alone, basically, right?
Yeah, exactly. But that's exactly right. If privacy means, for instance, you have businesses that are private. That's what a private trust is. A trust is a person. A trust is a person, but it's private. That's what they're really calling you. It's calling you a private trust. A trust is a person, but you have private trust. But the private trust is not subject to statutory regulation. It's separated from the government. The government don't have nothing to do with it. It's your natural common law right to contract. Private law is contract law, property law, status law, and tort law.
Okay. All right. Well, like I said,
privately. You can do business privately. You don't want to do anything public. Like this, in Wikipedia, it tells you that. Real good. Look up natural person, and it'll tell you that public is a governmental organization. It says, in jurisprudence, a natural person is a real human being as opposed to a legal person, which may be private, in other words, a business entity, or public, in other words, a government organization.
Like I said, I'm understanding it 100%. Like I said, when I call in here, because like I said, I've always had various questions, that I need answered. It's not too much clarity.
I'm gonna tell you this. Get a Black's Law Dictionary and look up public law.
I have one. Well, which one's
look
better?
Up public law. All right. Look up public law and look up private law and look up special law. All right. Look up those words and start there. Start looking up the word. Find out what public law is. And what you're going to see, public law is constitutional law, administrative law, criminal law, and international public law. Now, let me ask you a question. If you are a private man or woman, why would you have constitutional rights? The only people that have constitutional rights are people who are on the public side, i.e. 14th Amendment citizens.
Mm-hmm.
The Constitution is a limitation on the government. It does not grant rights only to U.S. citizens. That's what it grants civil rights to. But it does not give you God-given rights. So the Second Amendment, which protects your right to have a gun, it doesn't protect your right to have a firearm. It doesn't protect your right to utilize a gun that was created by some corporation of the United States that has a serial number on it. But it does protect your right to create your own gun. If you want to build your own gun, you have a right to defend yourself and take up arms. But you don't have no right they're going to regulate anything that they create. And you, Smith & Wesson, if it got a serial number on it and it was created by a corporation that is a franchise of the United States, they're going to take jurisdiction over it. And I know this firsthand because I've done cases. I've done cases with that. I'm getting all the game, okay? It's just public. If y'all understand it's public and private, you'll understand everything. You'll understand everything.
I'm getting it. Listen, I'm getting it now. I mean, I'm getting it because, like I said, the thing about it, like it takes years to really understand this sort of information because when you, like you were saying, you were talking to this one lady about a cure for AIDS, and his brother, she looked like you crazy. But the stuff that that we talk about, you talk about in this show, the people who are really in the public, if you talk to them about it, they look at you like you're retarded. So it does take some time.
Because, number one, the public is ignorant. They are illiterate.
They're slaves.
I'm just going to put it out there. There's no other way for me to say it. The average individual walking around out there is operating probably on a 7th or 8th. Go back and look. Somebody sent me a test that 7th graders took in like the late early 1900s. Most people on this call wouldn't be able to do it. I'm telling you, straight up. Today, and I'm not trying to be mean or anything like that. It's just that we're not educated. We're That's why when you tell somebody this, you're talking to a person that looks at TV all day. I mean, you talk to a person who looks at 8 hours of TV a day. The average person looks at TV 8 hours a day, 6 to 8 hours a day. You really going to expect? You really expect you're going to come with some information like this, and they've been getting all their information from television? From Fox News? All right, let me go to the next caller, man. I got to take some more calls. Hello? Oh, you got dropped off. Let me go to 407-0359, your high frequency radio.
Peace.
407 area code. Greetings.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Oh, man, you got a great show. First of all, I just wanted to really thank you for giving this information out. You really helped to connect the dots for me personally. Studying Winston Shroud's solution, not even really studying it, just listening to it, not really understanding what was going on. You really helped. You really helped to connect those dots, to give me more of a foundation, to build upon.
Thank you. And you know what? I don't mean to interrupt you, but that is all I'm trying to do. I'm trying to give you the principles behind everything. And once you get the principle, you'll be able to understand everything. It's like a whole new world open up to you. Once you get the principle thing.
Right. And that's, that was important. That was important to me because, I was just, it was a friend of mine who's actually working these principles. He might not be working them to the best of his ability, but he put me on just to the whole private side, public side. And, some of these cats out here that's doing their seminars or what have you, they don't leak out a lot of information. They might start at the middle and just start throwing terms and things at you.
Oh, okay. They don't know. They don't know. You don't damn know. So I don't care if they're doing a seminar, so what? I don't care. They don't know. You know how long I've been around this and watching people sell. Now, when I first got into this, people were selling secure party creditor packages for $10,000 a pop.
Woo! And I'm like, man, and I don't want to sit in no seminar and get a history class for 2 hours. I mean, these fundamentals should be out here on the internet. I know I know now that they're out here. You should be able to get the fundamentals without digging into your pocket.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Now,
once you learn the fundamentals, if you want to set a class to try to help teach people how to work the fundamentals, now that's worthy of compensation. But the fundamentals we should all have, for basically little to nothing.
Everybody should know the fundamentals.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we're supposed to be teaching our children. This is shit we're supposed to know. This is what we taught this shit in elementary and junior high school.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
This is elementary and junior high school shit.
Mm-hmm.
I did a show, Schoolhouse Rock. They was trying to teach us this shit in 1970 with Schoolhouse Rock. Get on YouTube and YouTube Schoolhouse Rock. Tell me I'm a lie.
Yeah. Well, brother, you definitely, I respect the sincerity because you didn't have to do it the way you're doing it. And that proves to me, that you're really sincere with helping people. And
I want to help. I want to help people. Don't get it twisted. I'm a businessman too now, but I understand. I understand that. I'm gonna be honest with you. I understand that to properly do this the right way, and I love what you said. You got to give people a foundation. You cannot take on students who don't know nothing. Our teacher used to tell us this. He said, you either going to come to me as a skeptic or a student. A skeptic don't have no information. A student has gotten a little information. Now they can come to you as a student because now they know what questions to ask. But a person who's coming to you blind off the rip, they're a skeptic. They don't know nothing. So now everything's just skeptical to them. They can't see the substance in what you're saying. So then you have a lot of brothers out there saying, well, that UCC stuff, the bullshit, they say that, and they're like, man, I understand why they would say that, but it's like, that's not how things are structured. It's like, this is business. And and these are people who do not have business minds. And you can tell because there's no business going on in our communities. We're not doing no business. And we damn sure ain't doing no business on no high levels. We ain't up there fucking around on Wall Street doing securitization and all of that. We're supposed to be. We're supposed to be doing business on an international level. We're supposed to be constructing pyramids again. Have old schools teaching our people that this is what we're supposed to be doing. I ain't supposed to be on the phone call teaching this ABC bullshit. This is some ABC shit. And that's why I put it out there because I think it's been going on for too long. It's been going on too long. We got to get some fundamentals down. So now we can move and we can start to see. You get the fundamentals. Now we got some glasses. Now we can see. But right now we can't even see. We can't see our way out of this shit. How you gonna win? You can't do this. We're just totally in the dark.
Yep, that's that ignorance. That's the ignorance. And you bring up a valid point about ignorance. Ignorance is the culprit. We can point the finger and say this, that, and the other. The fact that we are blind, our ignorance has led us in this situation. And, you know, I mean, me and my wife, we argue those points because the fact that the government don't give us full disclosure, that's not fair. That's not fair. At the same time, this knowledge is available.
I'm gonna say this in defense of my co-host, because I'm gonna reveal something. My intention for doing all of this. My intention is to do this because I know these are wicked people. I know they're wicked people, but I don't think that it's fair for us to call them wicked until we know what they know. See, right now, they can hide, they got clauses, they can hide behind our ignorance and say, it's not our fault, you're just ignorant people. But when we bring ourselves up to a certain level, we can look them in the face, now we justified in whatever course of action we need to take against these people. Because we can demonstrate to them unequivocally that you are a damn devil. That's what I want to do. But right now, for instance, give an example. They arrest somebody, a sovereign, a Moor, and then they plaster him all over the television that this is a sovereign citizen, stealing houses, breaking laws, doing all that. And now the ignorant general public who have probably about a third grade education starts demonizing that particular man or woman. But when everybody else understands, like, okay, well, then I can say, okay, well, you know, that brother did kind of mess up. He was kind of doing some public stuff and all operating. But then we said, well, wait a minute, hold on now. That's private what he was doing. He had a right to do that. But right now, it's too many people who are ignorant. So they can go on television and start calling you sovereign citizen, you are a threat to the government, you a terrorist, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? And to a degree, they right. To a degree, they right. But what's happening is that this individual is just attempting to exercise his free rights that God has given him that he should have a right to do, but he just doesn't have the requisite knowledge to learn how to walk correctly. And that's what it is, you know what I'm saying? He knows deep in his soul that this demon don't have no right to handcuff him down. I'm not here to be a slave. That's not my purpose in life. My purpose wasn't come down here to kiss your ass. I wasn't brought down here to do that. And that's what I'm trying to do. Some brothers called and he said, I understand what you're doing, brother. You're trying to avert a war. Not really. I'm trying to justify a war. Right now, we ain't justified going to war. We're too ignorant.
Yeah, that's true. I just love your approach and the way you breaking this down in layman's terms. And it's simple mathematics that's going on here. This is not no complex, sacred knowledge that you gotta, search. Now they do distract us, so your mind gotta be right. And I'm a strong believer of that. Your mind gotta be right. Cut out these distractions, eliminate these TVs, get your body right. That was my first mission. Started with getting my body right, putting the right foods in my body. That really started to spark. So it's been almost 2 years now. I've been vegan, and I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Our whole family. I got 3 boys I'm raising, vegan, along with my wife. We just all went in at the same time, and we're just loving it, man. It was one of the best decisions we made in our life, by far.
Your body tells so much about your mentality, your mental, and it gives you so much self-esteem. It does so much for you, to get your health together. It's a very important component. It's a very, very and that's another thing. I believe that as men, as soldiers, we're supposed to be healthy. How can we defend the nation if we aren't in shape?
You're right. Can't.
I don't see that. You're not soldiers. These people, they practice killing every day. They prepare to kill people every day.
Mm-hmm.
The U.S. is not going to go to war with these people, not right now. That's just not even something to consider. But thank you, brother. Let me go on to the next caller real quick. Yep. I appreciate the call, brother.
All right. Peace.
Peace. Let me go on. Taj and Paul, y'all still there? I think.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay. I'm bringing the next caller. 614 area code. 1 frequency radio. 614.
How you doing, Yusef?
All right, great, brother. How you doing? Where am I calling? This for Ohio? Okay, I've got Ohio on the line. What's up?
What's up? This brother Satuk out of Columbus, Ohio.
How you doing, brother?
How you doing, man? Just listening to the show, and as usual, you giving it. Is your brother there, Taj Tariq, still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Peace to you too, brother. Y'all, both of y'all brothers, you know, you got me started in law, bro. You got me started on this path, Tariq, watching them videos. So, you know, I definitely got to give it up to you. And me and a couple of brothers in the lodge, you know, what little bit I did know, I brought it to the lodge and had them, a few brothers out of some trouble, you know. And there's only so many people that can go so far. So, you know, I hope that's not disappointing to you, but everybody can't grasp what y'all giving. They just can't see it. The spell is too deep. Love it. I just closed my Black's Law Dictionary from what Yusef was talking about, but earlier when you was talking, Yusef, and you was giving all those codes and statutes, what was you reading from the IRS?
It's called, you can Google it on the internet. It's called an affidavit of tax exempt status. They have them on the internet. It's a boilerplate document. However, it's a good study. It's a good study. Because the tax code, trust law and tax law teaches you privacy. Because everything is about taxation. That's one thing that people have to learn. Because, see, people don't associate going to prison for murder with taxes. They won't make that. They can't make that connection. The first step is you got to understand that all crimes are commercial.
Right.
So it's a tax, and you get put in prison for tax evasion, not tax avoidance. You get put in prison for tax evasion when there's some duty incumbent upon you to pay taxes. So you can structure your life and live your life in such a way where you can limit your tax exposure. You know, which is it's hard to do. Don't get me wrong. What I'm telling you is not easy. This is not something easy. I'm sure the IRS is listening. You know, when a discussion like this goes on, you know, the IRS ears go, the radar goes through the roof. Because somebody's telling somebody they don't have to pay taxes. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying is that your activities and your conduct, if it's effectively connected with a trade or business within the United States, you have a duty to pay taxes.
Okay, now what I wanted to ask you was, you kept saying the United States. We're talking about D.C., Puerto Rico, Guam, and America, Samoa, and the rest of the small islands.
We're talking about the corporation.
Okay.
We're talking about the corporation. Now, I'm talking specifically about the corporate United States, yes.
Okay. So that's why I just wanted to make clear that, okay, the differentiate the United States in America. Okay. That's what I just wanted to know, bro.
You know, I'm not talking about the country, United States of America, the country, you know, the republic, the private. You know, that's the private. You know, that's public and private too. You know, you're talking about the United States Corporation, United States of America. When you say the Republic, you're talking about private. People actually go watch. I'm telling you, go watch that movie Lincoln that came out, but Steven Spielberg just did not too long ago. And there is a part in the movie where there's a delegation of individuals from the South who come to talk to General Grant. And General Grant, and basically, you know, the South wants to, you know, they're trying to say that, hey, we are our own country. And General Grant said, oh hell, no, you're not. You rebels. That's what y'all are. Y'all belligerents. And then he tried to say, well, so-and-so said that we're a country, and he said, well, so-and-so is a private individual. He can say whatever the hell he wants. You in the United States now. Don't pay attention. That's a very important part in that movie for people to understand. It's in the movie. Lincoln was a very good movie people should watch anyway. That's a study.
Now, I had a couple of questions. I'm going to check it out. This thing, as far as you said, working off the private side, and if you have anything on the public side, a concealed carry permit.
A concealed carry permit is in the public. That's right. Public.
So they could bring you into court. You claim in private, but that would put you on Front Street.
Yeah, that would put you on. When you get a concealed, anytime you get a license to carry, any license is subject to regulation from the court. That's a permission. You're asking for a benefit from the corporation to do an activity. Which is okay. Let me tell you, everything in the public is not evil, y'all. Let me make this clear. Everything in the public is not evil. The public serves a very good purpose. Okay, you know, we need our public servants, and we need and activities that commence in the public have to be regulated. All right, we need police, we need sheriffs. We need firemen. We need these things. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying there's a problem when they begin to encroach upon private rights. That's the only thing they're not supposed to do.
Okay,
and that is the purpose of the Constitution. The Constitution is put in place to prevent this corporate entity from encroaching in the private. That is all that document does. And it's all the Supreme Court makes sure of when they say, well, that's a constitutional violation. That all they're saying is you came out of the public and went into the private, and your ass know that's a violation.
Okay, so
that's all they do.
How do we proceed to do that, carry, and not go get their permission?
Like I said, if you're using guns that are created by the United States, they have a right to regulate those guns. They're their creation. They a franchise of the United States created those guns, so they got a right to make you get a license and permit to use them. You have to build your own guns. That's what private individuals do. That's what private men and women do. Build their own shit. They can't stop you from making your own gun, but they can stop. They call them a firearm. They can stop you from using shit they make, but they can't stop you from using shit you make. This is what I mean when I say people don't understand freedom. They don't know what real freedom is. Freedom is a huge responsibility because it means you do everything for yourself. You grow your own food, you get your own electricity, you do everything yourself. Which today, in today's society, you don't have a lot of people doing that. That's why 98% of the people are in the public. They don't understand what real freedom is. And that's why they can't get remedy when they go and try to petition other people for it, because these other people, they understand what true freedom is and what private rights are. And they can look at your conduct and immediately they can't give you a remedy because you're infringing on somebody else's right. They're not going to infringe on somebody else's right. Paul, you on the line. He gave me a document to read. It was so good.
Oh, excuse me. I didn't hear you. Excuse me, brother.
It was Paul. I was talking about my co-host. He gave me a document to read.
All right, good brother.
It was on international law. What was that document you emailed me, Paul? You remember? You might not be on the line anymore. But basically, it was talking about public and private, and people have to understand that the government has rights too, and they're not going to infringe on their rights or your rights. You got to stay in your own sphere.
Yeah, because we sanctioned their rights, and therefore we're responsible to them.
Exactly, we did. I like how you put that. We sanctioned their rights. That's through the Constitution.
We sure did. Okay,
so we sanctioned their rights. It is our duty and responsibility to know the distinction because the principles of civilization came from us. This is why so many people from other nations have contempt for us for calling ourselves brands that the Europeans created, because we're the direct descendants of civilization and keep acting like we don't know. But yet we're always talking about gods and Allahs and Jesuses and don't even know the rough fundamental rules of the earth that our forefathers created.
Yeah, that's true. Truth is truth.
Let me see if I can Google it. People would go to a law library and look up administrative law. Let me see if I can find it. Administrative law, United States rights. Can create a right. And let me see if I can find this real quick. See if I can find it. Administrative agency, judicial defense, administrative law norms and constitutional decision, individual rights, judicial. Let me see if I can find this. I mean, it's a very individual rights, judicial deterrence, and administrative law norms and constitutional decision making. It makes a very, very interesting study. This is too much. I can't read this over the air or anything. But go to a law library, start studying administrative law, and start understanding the rights of the United States. What rights the United States has. And that's the problem. People don't think the United States has rights. The United States has rights. You need to understand what those rights are. And just like they can't infringe on your rights, you can't infringe on their rights. Some people say, "Oh, the United States ain't got no rights." Okay.
and that's where people need to understand constitutions or treaties are equal documents, as set forth in Article 6 of the Constitution, where it says all contracts and engagements entered into before the adoption of the Constitution shall be binding against the United States under this Constitution as under the Confederation, and all treaties made or which shall be made in pursuance thereof shall be the supreme law of the land. And so the people's duty and responsibility, and particularly the Aboriginal indigenous people here, who are the Moors, have a responsibility to the law set forth by their forefathers and take their places amongst the affairs of men. And thus, therefore, is our duty and responsibility to reestablish institutions that give civic, or what is called civilization instruction. Instead of building all these churches and clubs, we should be building some civic organizations and supporting them and making sure that our people are capable to take their places amongst the affairs of men and render unto Caesar what is Caesar's.
So can I ask you something, Brother Todd? Have you ever come through Ohio, man?
Yes.
You ever come through Columbus to teach?
I've been in Columbus and Cleveland. I never came to teach. I just came traveling.
Okay. So
and I went to Cleveland to deal with the circle of mothers and sons, other Moors, etc. More or less, just keeping the spirit of growth going on.
Okay, so we gotta find some way, man, to get you and Yusef here, man. We got to. So what
part of Ohio are you in? What part of Ohio are you in?
I'm in Central Ohio. I'm in right here, dead center, Columbus, Ohio, bro. Home of the Buckeyes.
Oh, Columbus. Okay.
Yeah.
I've been to Ohio. I've been there about 2 times before. Every time I go to Cleveland.
Right.
But
Cleveland
I've passed Columbus and Dayton before.
Yeah, Cleveland is like big stage. You got to go to Cleveland to get. Our biggest population of Moors is in Cleveland, and in Cincinnati. Yeah. We only 12% of the population here, but they have roughly close to 45-50% up there and down there on the river in Cincinnati. So, we notice the difference. It's more, the racism here is more behind your back, where there, in those 2 places, it's more in your face.
Islam, brother, can I interject on this?
Yeah.
In order to help our people, one of the things, and this is one of the things that I really appreciate about Brother Yusef, because he is really an honorable avatar. And it is because he presents this information sympathetic to truth and not sympathetic to part. And so, therefore, when we're seeking truth, we must be impartial, and we must criticize the dirt on our shoes while we criticize the dirt on the European shoes, because we're equally guilty for having corrupted this thing. It's just that our ox is getting gored more right now, so we're complaining. However, in reality, it is simply like this. He has jurisdiction over fiction that he created, but we've accepted the fiction. And this is back to the principle when Noble Drew Ali told the Moors, and Marcus Garvey said the same thing, to enforce the Constitution. But Moors did not know that the Constitution came from their forefathers. They think it came from Europeans. That's why Obama had to go to Egypt and remind them the origin of the Constitution that is derived from Muslim law. And people need to know that, because they need to stop throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And this is how Brother Yusef is really trying to bring the information to the people. And sometimes the people confuse and think he's stepping on the other side when he's really telling us to be responsible. And for lack of information of our real history, a lot of things that are attributed to the European occupiers is really our stuff, and vice versa. So we need to know the difference between person and person, i.e. feudal and allodial, and the fictions that they create and how they've been using it. And again, as we all recognize, we have amongst us so many dishonorable men who have corrupted the principle of honor and integrity. And so therefore, that refinement in our analysis, the refining argument must be fixed. And indeed, venues like this are bringing that about. However, again, we must recognize that that Constitution is derived from Muslim law, and that it is a contract for them doing business here. Thus, so is the treaty. And so when you look at the Constitution for the United States of America, you must look at the treaty which supersedes it but is attached to it. And I think this is one of the weaker areas that we need to address with our people around the country, is that they need to start reading that Constitution and that treaty as one document. That's why years ago I put them together, even though that was a standard of instruction amongst Moore's Order of the Round Table and the Order of the Great Seal and the Circle of Mothers and Sons and all of the active vanguard orders of the Moorish movement maintain that principle, because it's very important for us not to throw the baby out the bathwater. And so we must recognize that the assigned government, its charter is essentially the Constitution to do business. And so we must look at them as a business, and we must look at all activities coming from them as commerce. And then the protections of our private right and property is regulated by virtue by the limited jurisdictions and authorities allocated to those who are assigned. This is where the quo warrantos comes in, and writs are prerogative writs that comes from us if we are in our proper person. And so we've got to look at it that way. But again, I don't want to hog a lot of time. I want to keep on listening. But we got to remember that we have the responsibility to recognize their right, too. Now, there's a caveat. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
There's a caveat. Yes.
Go ahead.
There's a caveat that we all have to consider, and the caveat is that since the activities of Woodrow Wilson in his mind of deception with a lot of other European deceptors, thinking that selling the government, etc., and then secretly enforcing the secret Treaty of Verona, and then with Franklin Delano Roosevelt in 1933, when they were making the transfers of gold, etc., to the Queen of England to enforce their secret Treaty of Verona, essentially their corporation, United States Corporation, was dissolved. And so what we have to make clear with us is making the distinction between legitimate government and impostorship and impersonation, which is really what's going on now. And so we have a lot of dishonor, and whereas we've been in many ways honorable to respect the rights of government, when a lot of these people are not really government, they're actually impersonators. And we need to look at that within the venues of our discussions on these matters. And that's just something to think about. That can be another show in itself, impersonation.
We definitely can go in a show on that. My contention is that we have to start being producers. Right now, we getting caught up a lot too because we're consumers. That treaty that you're speaking of lays out how we're going to do business as well.
Exactly.
And we're not doing business.
That's right. It's commerce, and we have to recognize that.
So we got to do business, and that's what I'm saying. I think sometimes we're looked at as,
and that's why I'm appreciating it, because you're not letting anybody off the hook to take responsibility for their allodial claims. We must do business. We must start producing. We must come together as a unit and start using the limited power, just like Drew Ali said, take our nickels and dimes together and build something. Promote business.
Something. We got to start building our own. We got to start building it ourselves. I believe if we start doing it ourselves, we'll gain the respect of the world, and I think you'll start to see a lot of the arrests and things stop. I don't think it's always just racism. I think, I think sometimes it is. Don't get me wrong, it is definitely sometimes, but it's business behind all of this, and we're not privy to the numbers that they're generating or anything like that. But I think that's why I brought this public charge doctrine out. I need to study that. Study that thing about public charge. That's dealing with people who do not contribute anything to society. If you're out here just laying around, don't do nothing, don't work, they got to do something.
Yes. I want to make one more point. Let me make one more point, because before the thought leaves me, because it's important for the venue too, because the venue is what you would call a traveling. We're digging deeper to reach the higher heights of truth. And keep in mind that the race argument is also part of social engineering, because race is the human species. And so racism has been used to address actually what's going on in the background, which is actually the Christian Black Codes of 1724, which was adopted into all the states when they closed the Freedmen's Bureau in 1868 after they and that's when they created the corpse to slay the living. And the corpse to slay the living is the corporation that was created with the 14th Amendment. And so dealing on the degrees that we're dealing on, we want to not fall into the language, the connotative language was created by the social engineers, which from a legal perspective kind of weakens our argument, because we're not suffering racism. Racism is the love of the human species. And race is the species, and the dividing of the species into jurisdictions of extended families are called nations and nationalities all across the planet. And so the deal of it is, what we're suffering from is the secret Treaty of Verona and the Christian Black Codes and the Buck Act, all which were designed to steal the birthrights of the Moors. And just like any other thing, you know, if we're going to make a legal argument, we must name the dog. And that's what we're really suffering from. We're not suffering from racism. We're suffering from the Christian Black Codes of 1724, adopted into all the states in 1868. And we're suffering from the secret Treaty of Verona enforced, including with the overseers, all of the clergy that our people keep giving funds to every Sunday don't know that they're submitting the people to the popes of Rome and not to Jesus. It's our responsibility to know these things, and that sets at Article 3 of their secret Treaty of Verona. And so we are in need to know what's really affecting us, just like any other form of engineering. We got to know what's broke in order to address it, and not to be tempted by arguments they create for us to argue when very often they're deceptive. And the argument of racism is a deceptive argument. I just wanted to put that in there.
And that's very beautifully stated. Very beautifully stated. Go ahead.
Can you give Brother Tosh my number?
Oh, okay. Hold on. I had no pink pen written. Hold on. Let me get it. Okay, you just that's what I have. Okay, yeah, I got your number. Okay, yeah, I give him your number. I have it.
Yeah, 'cause I definitely need you and him, man. Give me a ring so we can try to set up something to get you guys here.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'll call Taj. I'll call you after the show. Okay.
All right, good brother. All right,
okay. Peace. All right. Let's go to. I got time for one more call. Okay, I got one more call. Let me go to Atlanta real quick. 448-8059. You're on High Frequency Radio.
Next time, just tell me. That money ain't no profit. That just costs a promissory.
4-4.
No promissory.
All right. Let me go to. See where I'm gonna go next. 386-1990.
What's going on, Yusef?
Hey, what's going on, brother?
All right. Hey, man, you do so much repeating. You're a great teacher. You do so much repeating, a lot of repeating, man. Big props to you. What I wanted to ask you was, you had mentioned a trust document earlier. You put it in the chat room, and I was wondering if you could give that over the air, or at least email it.
Yes, I'll email it to everybody. I usually try to, like, if I have a class like this, I'll email all the documents that were talked about on the show. So look for the email. The name of the document is Unincorporated Business Organization and Irrevocable Trust Management.
Right.
Very good document to read. It's probably the best thing I have been able to find on the internet thus far. There is a lot more information, but I think it's a very good primer for individuals. Now, this is not a typical trust. When you talk about unincorporated business organizations or private trusts, these are the same type of trusts that they utilize, like for real estate investment trusts and things of that nature. But it will start to give you a very good understanding on this public and private and how and this taxation. That's a real good document. It's something that's on the internet that's free. I think it's some good information, and it can start you on your journey to start learning this information. It's by no way an exhaustive treatise on this subject. Please do not think that. But I think it's very, very very good information to start with.
Right, yeah. I really appreciate it. After I've been on it for a minute, but it takes some people you vibrate better with, and it just sinks in better. And it's really been sinking in, man. And so it ain't nothing but business. It ain't nothing personal at all. And after looking at all this, I really see that the cat really to look at, really to watch, man, is Obama. Obama is on it. Because that shit, like, what's going on, that shit's just public. They ain't got nothing to do with nothing. Like, in behind the scenes, that cat is on it. On it.
He even threw us a couple of bones every now and then, but that's what people don't understand. They be getting bad on Obama. That's all public. Everything he's doing, he's supposed to be doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's public. You know, and then when you start listening to him, you'll hear him make the distinction between public and private.
He says it right there.
His old speeches, where he says, "I'm not worried about the private; it's the public I'm concerned with."
A lot of cats are so caught up with the United States shit and all that, or whatever. But man, that's the shit right there. That's the one cat to really look at. But hey, man, I appreciate it.
It'll start to sink in. It will.
Yeah. Thank you. Hey, really, big up. I thank you so much. Because, man, I don't want you to give me nothing, but at least just, man, the scripts and the documents you give out is like gems. Because all these, man, anyone complaining and keep asking the same questions, should never be that every time you call. It should be something new. Because if you ain't going back and then looking back, it's like, I mean, shit, why are you even on the phone for? And so... And it's coming from a younger cat, so I don't care how old you are. If he was going out to all the callers on the phone, I don't know. Like you, I felt you had said something a show back, and I felt like I was just being stagnant. And after that, shit, it just dug me out of the rut. So I don't know, maybe that hit somebody or something where it need to. But I appreciate it though, for real, Yusef.
You're welcome, brother. You're welcome. Thank you for listening, man. I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Peace out.
Okay, y'all, that's it for today. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. I appreciate it. I especially want to thank Taj Street Gray for joining me today. Thank you, Brother Taj. I appreciate it, brother. Tomorrow we will have, you're welcome. Tomorrow we're going to have National Agenda. My co-host, Paul David Savage, L. And I know I got him fired up. So it's going to be a good show tomorrow. So I might tune in. I'm gonna plug in tomorrow on his show tomorrow. I'm waiting for you to start something with me tomorrow.
That's good. We're gonna be thankful for being in the company.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to be on tomorrow, y'all. Same bad time, same bad channel. And I want to thank everybody for listening and tuning in. I want to thank everybody. I appreciate the show's growing, getting more and more popular. Y'all spread the word, get it out there. I'll see everybody tomorrow. Thank you for listening. High Frequency Radio, y'all.
High Frequency. Yeah. Sync up. Already. Yay. I get up with the frequency each and every morning. Thanks, practice gratitude, commence brainstorming. Live, awake, excited, new day, new me. TSA, courtesy of JRE and Scott Free. Too many folks shallow, scared to drown in the deep end. And I ain't pointing fingers, best believe I was one of them. The pain I was numbing it, self-inflicted punishment. The streets I was running in led me to consciousness. Yes, they can steal my flows, but can't block my shine, baby. You see my glow? Now I live in the light, radiating love. Sun, you're a star, as below, so above. Am I too metaphysical? Are you over analytical? So many situations get critical. I'm a warrior, survivor is an understatement. Started subterranean, now we in the cosmos on some Milky Wavy shit. Sun-kissed, melanin rich, health is wealth, we live abundant. Connected with the oneness, I'm off my dumb shit. I bring to you substance more specific, life is synchronistic. All is energy, fact, over fiction when I rap. That high frequency, yeah, we on that. Sync with the most divine, catch contact, physicality beyond that. High frequency, we on that. Mind over matter, thoughts not scattered. Roll stars co-creating, spiral up, no ladder to heaven or hell. And you leave a vibrations, they all red.
Day to day just hoping, going through the motions, staring at the doors, who could ever get this open? Till I uncovered the secret to keeping it real. I got in touch with my soul, the fan my frequency feel. We playing follow the leader ain't going nowhere. That's why I'm living my life with a sovereign mind. All I want in this world is to spread love and greatness to you, using my music for we out of time. So for the divine, I'm doing my due diligence, giving some peace to views that's too militant. Doing it different, I got purpose and position. Feel the vibration, transmission is the mission. Need you to listen to these words, my dude. I swear my third eye got a bird's eye view. And do you wanna sync up? Cause I do. Surfing this wave, follow as we ride through.
All is energy, fact, over fiction when I rap. That high frequency, yeah, we on that. Sync with the most divine, catch contact. Physicality beyond that, high frequency, we on that. Mind over matter, thoughts not scattered, co-stars, co-creating, spiral up, no lag.